Trying to make sure it
Yeah,
sounds
that's,
good for most people. Was all.
yeah. Very good
So
meme.
guys, are we gonna talk about how
Squeaky
Broku has a
note.
Dokkan video on it there?
He's fine on your end. How can you donate, bro? It's just super chat, man. No, I'm not sick. But all right, let's get into it. So this is Igneel's video. Black Clover's not universal, so you can check him out if you want. Raise my volume by 5%.
This man said 5%. That's so specific.
I guess I can a tiny bit on the mic itself. All right, I turned it up a tiny bit.
Yeah, I ain't got settings like that. I'm gonna be real. I'm just on my Mac, so.
All right, let's get into it. Also, chat, let me know if the audio for the video that we're watching is loud enough.
So, in this video, I'm going to be explaining why I disagree with high universal meta for Black Clover. And no, I don't hate Black Clover or the characters. Just because I don't agree with the universal meta doesn't mean I hate the story. This video is mainly to reply to the people that think I have some type of bias against Black Clover, just because I didn't agree with Universal Asta in my Meliodas versus Asta video.
Guess I'm gonna say. Did somebody say something?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying. He was saying like, oh, it's in response to the people who were saying I'm biased, and we're gonna see how that one didn't go down very well.
Yeah, I would say it comes off pretty biased, whether it's subconscious or conscious bias. Yeah.
Which has more than 5k views now. I also want to point out that as of the writing of the script, it is October 25th of 2024. So don't slander me if Asta gets more concrete feats of him being high universal or higher. This video is only refuting the arguments that I've seen up until this point in time for those that want to see a good video on why Asta or Black Clover is universal, then watch Broku's video on the topic, since he is the god of Black Clover power scaling like none other. Without further ado, sit back,
cameo appearance, I guess.
relax, and hopefully you learn something new. So when talking about universal Black Clover, I am gonna do a simple short summary of the arguments and then attack it one by one so that you know which argument I am attacking. The first argument is based on Dorothy's glamour world being stated by Luck that it is infinite, and Magna says that it is impossible. But Elf Dorothy says here in glamour world, the impossible is possible, which implies that glamour world is indeed infinite in size. And Yami, with monozone dimension / equinox, can destroy said space, which even though Yami used a Hax attack, Hax can have attack potency, meaning Yami has high universal AP. We later see Yami use the Dimension Slash on Dante, which Dante easily warped the Dimension Slash, but Yami used a new spell called Death Thrust to destroy Dante, and the Death Thrust is stated to be stronger and faster than Dimension Slash. And Death Thrust is just his condensed monozone, meaning it's pure magic power. Therefore, it scales to Yami, making Yami high universal, and anyone who scales to him.
Probably should have just skipped this part, because it's like what the argument is, but...
The first reason why I disagree with this is because, for one, Luck has no real way to sense infinite distance to...
Wait. So he says Luck has no real way. So he's not just saying that this is a knowledge claim, as in, can we actually say it? He's saying that Luck just flat out cannot do that.
It sounds like a bit of an absurdity, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so...
Pretty blatant one.
Here's the thing with Igneel's. I've talked to him before, I've seen a bunch of his videos, and, for example, he'll always argue that you can get high universal scaling for Seven Deadly Sins because this character is stated to have infinite magic. Well, how can you tell these characters can sense infinite magic? And, so yeah, like, it's like the whole point of knowledge claiming Black Clover, but not Seven Deadly Sins. Did anybody want to go into the other debunks for this point specifically?
I mean, I can real quick. If Toxic ain't trying to go.
Yeah, I'll let that.
Yeah, basically, the other main thing for this point is you've got Lumiere, who is able to sense Zagred's mana in the Shadow Palace from the Demon Skull, which we know, like, the Shadow Palace is like a separate space-time. So that's a much greater than infinite distance, and Lumiere, from what we know in the series, doesn't have anywhere near the level of mana sensing skill that Luck does at this point in the story, let alone later on. So saying that Luck wouldn't be able to sense an infinite distance is kinda iffy, considering he should just, like, be better than Lumiere, based on the fact that Luck is one of, like, 2 characters who gets hyped up to based on mana sensing, the other one being Yuno, if I remember correctly. But yeah, partially because it's an attribute thing, right? That's mentioned in the dungeon arc. It's mentioned in the dungeon arc for lightning magic, and then in the Capital Assault arc for wind magic.
Yeah.
But yeah. There's also the fact that, like, it's not actually a knowledge claim because Luck's sensing ability isn't particularly relevant to the feat anyway. But that's a different point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah. Nia's asking in chat question, wasn't the Shadow Palace having an open gate?
There was an open, like an opening to travel through, but 1, it was closing, and 2, other characters demonstrated that they weren't able to sense that, and we do know that it was a form of spatial phenomena as well, so...
I'll have to check, but I'm pretty sure
it shouldn't negate the
closed,
distance.
then Yuno opened it with his magic stone, then it closed again, and then Sekre had to unseal it to let them in. So I think it was
possibly?
I'm pretty sure it was actually closed.
It might have been.
But
I'd have to go back and reread.
I'm pretty sure that it was closed. But even, let's say, if you want to throw away the Lumiere point, we still have Henry being able to sense things going on inside a Glamour world, even though he's outside of that dimension. Yeah, and so it's like, you have Henry sensing things in other dimensions, and he has no, like,
You've also got Games Magic Dude not only being able to sense stuff going on in a separate space when him and Yami are put in a, like, inside a separate space to keep Yami out of the fight in the Underwater Temple arc, but he's able to, like, actually work his magic from that separate space as well, so they're, like, completely spatially disconnected, and they're still able to, like, function and shit, so...
Yeah.
It's one of them ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of them ones. It's crazy.
But I think I'm just gonna let him finish his point on Luck, and then if he doesn't add anything, I'll just kind of add in what most people, not necessarily him, but most people try and argue that about Luck sensing, and then we'll continue from there.
Concretely say it is infinite, and you would have to prove that he can, otherwise Luck's knowledge claim can be put into question, and the burden of proof is always on the positive side. So in this case, would be the people that presupposes that he can sense infinite distances. The second reasoning is...
Alright, so, like, the whole point with, like, again, arguing why he could, well, we have the statement itself, like, or him actually, you know, stating that he's doing that, as well as, oh, well, Luck, narratively, and just practically in the series, has some of the greatest mana sensing, if not the greatest. And then you have, like we already brought up, we have Lumiere sensing something from a completely different dimension, Henry doing that, and Lumiere probably has pretty good, you know, mana sensing because he's the Wizard King, but Henry doesn't have any. So it's like, we have other characters in the same arc doing similar things. One that is, you know, inarguably lesser at sensing than Luck. So it's like, okay, we have the actual statement of the feat happening, as well as evidence supporting it. So it's like, the burden there is already met. This feels like he's saying, like, he's, you know, debunked the arguments that he's seen, but it's like, and then he showed my video, and I'm pretty sure in my video I addressed why Luck, like, he has, like, the evidence to be able to, like, sense these long distances. So, based on that, I think the burden of proof is actually on him, and then if we go into that, which I think he doesn't, but people argue, like, well, there's times where Luck doesn't sense things, but Luck has 2 different types of sensing: his passive sensing, and then his sensing where he is actually focusing on sensing. And, like, people bring up him struggling to sense the dungeon early in the series. Well, 1, that's early in the series. 2, he actually did sense it he'd have to use his active sensing to do it, and that was inside of a space that distorted space and mana, making it harder to sense. But, yeah. Oh, Spooner, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that. The Yami feat doesn't scale to Glamour World. I think it does. Like, not, like, completely. Like, I feel like if we said that Glamour World was only, multi-solar system in size or whatever, then I don't think you could say that Yami's multi-solar, but if you argued it was infinite in size, just the fact that you destroyed it, if you scaled any, like, finite percentage, you would scale. But anybody else got anything to say on the luck point?
I mean, the only other thing I was gonna bring up, well, okay, two. One, there is the fact that Lumiere, in terms of his ability to sense mana, it should actually be, because obviously, like, to an extent, we see with characters as they grow stronger and more proficient with their magic, they do get more proficient with mana sensing as well. Lumiere should actually be a decent bit behind where he would be at that power level in the Elf Arc normally, because obviously the statue Lumiere is amped by all the magic stones, so that's not him, like, growing in proficiency, it's a massive negative mana amp.
Yeah.
So he'd actually be more akin to where he was, in terms of mana sensing ability, he should be more akin to where he was when he was alive. And we also know that, like, not only, like, just magic in general growing stronger, but people grow more proficient with magic over the years. So over a 500-year period, that's just more evidence for Luck, who is particularly noted to being incredible at sensing mana, being better than Lumiere. The other thing I was going to mention, this one might be a bit iffy of whether you want to apply it to Luck, but you do also have Lucifero being able to sense devils from the underworld when those devils are outside of the underworld. Even being able to do so with Libe, which wasn't even like a mana thing, because Libe didn't even have mana. So like it's just a little bit of extra stuff to support like those like massive distances, people sensing those massive distances. Yeah,
this will be I'll post this on my streaming highlights channel later, Yami, just so I can also tag Igneel in it so you can see. Alright, I think that I have like another point, but I think he actually will bring it up as evidence anyways, so we'll just continue. You have anything to say, Toxic?
It was kind of like a simple thing, but like I know like there might be the argument where people are just like, well, if it's based off showcasings, why can't Lumiere be above like Luck and mana sensing? But it's kind of just like even in like the first guidebook, we have like it talking about Luck's like mana sensing, but like they don't say that for Lumiere, even though he's like in the guidebook. So it's like pretty interesting implication to argue that like Lumiere is like.
I was just gonna say, is that the first or second one? I forget.
First one.
I don't think. Well, Lumiere like he didn't do anything yet.
Why not?
But
might have been the second one then, but I do remember like Lumiere was in the fan book or guidebook, I guess.
It's probably the movie data book.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, because like volume 16.5 was just after the Witch's Forest arc. So I'd imagine it'd be the 23.5 data book.
Potentially.
Which, spoiler alert, will be a secret tool that'll help us later.
Ooh.
Alright, I'm gonna continue.
Because Yami using Mana Zone Dimension / Equinox is different from Yami using regular Dimension / while keeping his Mana Zone active for Black Moon and not Dimension /, which when he uses Dimension / Equinox, he uses up all of the Mana Zone and not a portion of it.
So that's never like it's never like stated that he's using all of the Mana Zone when doing Dimension / Equinox. I don't know where he's getting that from.
That's
here's
not even like a.
Continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's not even like he's like misinterpreted this statement or whatever. Bro has just manufactured that one. Frankly,
I don't know where that's come. But also, right? Like, are we thinking if you're saying it's only Dimension / Equinox with Mana Zone, the regular Dimension / doesn't scale to this. Like, does that mean you're arguing Mana Zone's an infinite multiplier then?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like,
that would mean that Mana Zone has made him infinitely stronger.
Yeah, or
and it's like
conversely,
if he doesn't argue that. Oh my bad.
I'm sorry, you continue, Toxic.
I was gonna say it's like even if it is not even if well if he argues against that point of it like being an infinite multiplier, which most likely will, then it's just like what does this change if he's doing it with like a monozone variation of it? Like we don't know like any quantifiable amps, and on top of this too, we have statements of Yami saying he's like the strongest he's been at, or he feels like he's the strongest he's been at in like the Lucifer fight even. So it's just like I don't understand like what the need is instead of for like arguing it's a monozone variation.
Yeah, because we just know for a fact that later versions of Yami are way stronger. In fact, the Yami in this episode that destroys Glamour World is fodder compared to the Yami a few episodes later that trains with Mereoleona. And that version of Yami still isn't even as strong as the beginning of Spade Yami.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's actually a good point, Boundless. Boundless brings up that when characters use all their monozone, it's called monozone full release, and Yami never did that.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, Toxic, is if you mentioned, like, oh, well, it's a... Like we don't really have a quantifiable amp. We do know that a basic monozone, one that's like a few feet wide, like we see when monozone's first explained properly in the series, is, like, said in the data book in 16... I think this is 16.5, this might be later, is said to be a many times increase. So, if this is Yami using all of the mana in his monozone, then it's like four times stronger than a normal Dimension Slash.
And it's like, you know...
That's more than it being infinitely weaker, so like that's still even if you want to go with that, it's not a demon.
The funny point too is that Julius sees this Dimension Slash, and then he says that the Ancient Demon is above like all spells. Which means that the Ancient Demon would tank this attack, which means it has higher durability than Glamour World. So it's like, it doesn't even matter. Like, there's a lot of these arguments that even if we say, okay, that is true, even though if it's not, if we just follow the logic, it doesn't actually do anything, because, like, there are characters that scale above it, even if you want to say that Yami doesn't.
With the stronger than, like, it beyond all spell statement, that can get particularly cracked as well if you factor in stuff from the movie.
True.
Because, like, we know Julius, for example, saw the final clash between Asta and Conrad up in the skies above the Clover Kingdom. So if you want to get really crazy...
True.
I mean, I guess you could, but, like, I'm pretty sure, like, chronologically, like, Asta versus Conrad happens after that little, like, spot with Dorothy and Yami.
After the fight with Dorothy and Yami, but before the Ancient Demon pulls up. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that Ancient Demon. I thought we were talking about, like, the one with, like, Demon Lick, and I was like,
Spade
Demon Lick,
I don't think the main cast ever saw Demon Lick.
I was about to say, bro, Demon Lick ass, yo. Yo.
Bro, imagine, dude.
Nah, bro, Demon Lick's getting cooked.
Maybe Demon Lick is top 10.
Stretching these arguments. What are you talking about? Alright, let's continue. I think that there's a few more points of specific.
Like we see in the Shadow Palace when he first used Dimension Slash Equinox with Elf Charlotte, amping his attacks. After the spell is launched, the monozone is then completely gone, and he has to reactivate it. So the Dimension...
I don't think he ever reactivates the monozone in the Zagrid fight.
Yeah, no, there's no indication that it dissipates either. Like, Yami doesn't show up again in the Zagrid fight, from what I remember. Because he launches that Dimension Slash, Zagrid gets cut in half, then Asta McFucking kills him.
Yeah, like, he literally... Yeah, he slices Zagrid, Yuno and Asta come in and end the fight, and the fight's over. Like, I don't get
So,
it.
like, this whole thing about him having to recast the monozone later on in the fight is just factually incorrect.
Yeah, I don't get it. But I think he makes more points.
Slash, their thrust was seemingly being compared to wasn't the same Dimension Slash that Yami used in Glamour World. You can also argue that based on how monozone works, that Yami's Mana Zone was being amped by Glamour World, since the only magic.
Oh, this
Oh,
one.
God.
Here, like, this is that's not how Mana Zone works, because Mana Zone, you absorb the nature's mana in the area, and like you could maybe argue there's nature's mana in Glamour World, but it's not him absorbing Glamour World as Mana Zone to amp himself. The
only nature's mana that would be in there likely would be whatever nature's mana was in the area around Dorothy and Yami when they got brought in. And even then, considering they were fighting on William's World Tree Magic, even that small area probably wouldn't have had as much as usual, considering we know William's World Tree Magic does absorb ambient mana in the area. So, like, even with the fact it's such a small area, it'd be even less than it would normally be in that circumstance. And then you combine that with Yami's Mana Zone being kind of ass at this point in the story.
I was just gonna show, I have scans, like, on screen now, it says, dominate the space with nature's mana. It's like, this is saying that Mana Zone is using nature's mana. And then we have Yami stating, I was able to use the Mana Zone, or whatever it's called, but I still don't really get it, and I need to take it, or I think I can take it a bit further, because he had to go train with Merliona to master Mana Zone. So it's like, how are we to expect that he just went above and beyond and, like, did a, like craziest Mana Zone ever when he's a Mana Zone noob at the time?
I think the worst part is I'm pretty sure the scan he showed when he was talking about, oh, well, if you take how Mana Zone works as well, I'm pretty sure that scan also explicitly says that it's nature's mana.
I think the one he showed doesn't. I think it just was
around us being amped by
Broku got blitzed.
So it says it just says mana in the surrounding area, I think. So it doesn't explicitly state nature's mana, but the data book does.
In that instance.
And then also
data book does, and we also have, like, later statements as well.
Yeah. So it's like, that's Mana Zone is not him absorbing Glamour World to amp himself. There's no, I don't think there's any actual evidence for it, but we'll continue his point.
Works that Yami's Mana Zone was being amped by Glamour World, since that Yami used in Glamour World. You can also argue that based on how Mana Zone works, that Yami's Mana Zone was being amped by Glamour World, since the only magic around Yami is Glamour World itself, which, shocker, Glamour World is a magical spell. And since we see Noel use one of the Wizard King's own ice magic...
That was not Mana Zone.
Yeah.
This is not Mana Zone. I think... This is a terrible argument. This is Gray converting the ice into water, and then Noelle taking that water for herself. This is nothing close to Mana. We don't even know if Noelle can use Mana Zone at this point.
In fact, I'm pretty sure it's explicitly mentioned that she can't. Not only that, but also because the main thing with Mana Zone is that it gives you more mana to use, and Noelle struggles to use all of her own innate mana. Literally, last chapter.
Yeah.
Literally, the last thing we saw was Noelle needing help from Solid and Nebra to control, like, all of the mana in her body for a single attack, where they were bearing the brunt of the control process, and, like, it genuinely nearly killed them when Noelle was also, trying to control the mana, but summoning it as well.
Yeah.
So, like, you combine that with the fact that it's literally never even mentioned once that Noelle has Mana Zone, nor does she demonstrate anything that would, like, imply it.
It's also, like, weird, because it's like, if he is, like, trying to argue, like, Yami's using Glamour World to, like, amp up his Mana Zone, it's like, you think that'd be, like, stated or at least implied, because, like, this type of example he's using, it's just, like, a verbatim, like, stated thing. Well, not really stated, but more so shown, even though it's entirely different. It's at least, like, shown to us that Noelle's using somebody's magic to some degree, versus, like, Yami, you have no implications of that. You just kind of just, like, misconstrued a statement and try to apply that context to that scene.
Yeah.
When there's, like, no implications of that.
Not to mention, if we are saying that, like, let's just steal Amanda's argument real quick. if we are saying that Yami's Mana Zone for some reason did go beyond the limits of what Mana Zone actually does and absorb Glamour World itself, something that is demonstrated to either need a specialized magical item or a specific non-natural attribute, in the cases of either like the Sword of the Wizard King or like Ladros. Let's just say it did, for whatever reason. And you're saying, okay, so he doesn't scale to it being infinite because like he's drawing on Glamour World itself. That would still be him drawing on a fraction of an infinite-sized mana construct, channeling all of that power that he absorbed into an attack and sending it out.
Yeah.
He's still controlling and manipulating an infinite amount of mana, and again, we already know that Mana Zone is like a many times increase, which means bare minimum 4, which is a finite multiplier. Therefore, like, if it's a finite multiplier and he's still able to control an infinite amount of energy, that would just indicate that he's already manipulating infinite amounts of energy, or at least has infinite amount of energy potency with his attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, even if you want to make the argument, there are still characters that are going to scale above Dimension/Equinox anyways. So even if you want to say that it was an amped Dimension/Equinox, we still have multiple statements that this is, not the strongest or anything like that. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's just not a good point. That's a good point, Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically partially because of Bell, it made it so that could master Mana Zone, because he always had a lot of nature's mana around him.
Yeah, because, spirits are constructs of nature's mana in much the same way that devils are constructs of negative mana.
Then
and
you got
thus
Fraud
increase one's
Goleon.
capacity to utilize that. Bro, I'm still on the spirit dive copium, bro. I'm gonna keep it real with you.
Bro. He ain't done a single Mana Zone yet, bro.
I know who I chose. The right family member in Nozel.
Oh my god.
He got new power up, redeemed himself. Fuegoleon, where's your little brother? Where's your little brother, man? Like, where's your OC? Where's your OC at?
Bro.
Alright.
Nah, who is it? It's like Nero Mega Man who's got the merch of like Leo's fucking mugshot on the side of a milk carton, with just missing underneath
That's amazing,
it.
Oh my god.
So
awesome.
It's so real, bro. Where's my boy?
Yeah, what if Mars pulls up before him, dude? Like, low key?
I might actually cry.
Oh my god. Alright, let's get to it.
To amplify her own water magic
sorry.
in the new Black Clover movie called Sword of the Wizard King. Then it's safe to say that Yami could have done a similar thing to destroy Glamour World.
So again, I feel like this is, it's almost like it's an appeal to possibility based off something that has no precedent, because Noelle didn't just do it. She had to have somebody else convert that water to the same magic as hers. And also, Noelle didn't do that with Mana Zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just don't think
this ain't even appeal to possibility, it's appeal to impossibility, bro.
Oh my God.
It's that bad.
Without knowing.
Yeah, what the?
So,
I'm dead, bro.
Oh
Impossibility.
my god.
I see no
Oh
problem
my God.
with Yami only destroying Glamour World because he got amped by
Also,
it.
double unite
Also,
Fury
Mana
in
Zone may
chat.
have some level of power nullification, seeing how Mana Skin has it, and Mana Zone is superior to Mana Skin.
I think most people make the argument that Mana Skin isn't power nullification, it's resistance to power nullification.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've never seen an argument
because
like
kind of
before. What the
weird.
hell?
Because what's stated in the series is that if you have high magic power, you can create mana force fields that nullify other people's power, and that is what is stated what happens in Grand Magic regions in Mana Skin. So like, this seems to be a lot more like he took that Mana Skin is a resistance to power nullification, as it is power nullification. So
Yeah, it feels like he's trying to argue that instead of like resisting power null, it's like power nulling any form of power null that comes towards it.
yeah,
Or something.
yeah.
Which,
And-
like, is kind of a thing, but that's not a mana skin thing. That's just a levels of magic power thing.
Yeah, then it's like, oh, well, if he can nullify Glamour World but can't nullify Gravitational Singularity, then does that mean that, AP is higher there? And, what was I going to bring up? I can't remember now, but yeah, I think the Mana skin is resistance to power nullification, not power nullification. That's just how it's kind of described.
You've got the Noelle stuff in when she's fighting. I forget the name of the elf, but the one with compass magic. Divin, yeah. Like the whole thing is like that spell like disrupts mana in the air, and Noelle was able to resist it, not completely nullify it, but resist it by maintaining her mana skin as best as she could until she eventually pulled out the Valkyrie dress.
Yeah. I think, Spencer, you can make the argument that Mana skin is a resistance to anti-magic. Depending on the character.
Kind of, to an extent.
If the power gap is still not too big. But yeah, Mana skin is resistance to power nullification, not power nullification. So Mana Zone would be a higher resistance to power nullification, not actual power nullification. And again, even if it was, well, okay, Yami could nullify Glamour World, but not these other spells, which you can make the argument that those spells are then stronger than Glamour World, so I don't think it's a defeater either way.
Which, like, I'm surprised he went with the Mana Zone being power null thing rather than, like, Dark Magic being power null, because Dark Magic having power null properties is actually way better supported, so if you wanted to make that argument, that's the way I would have gone about it. Not that I would make that argument in the first place.
It's kind of like how it's introduced with Light Magic, kind of, where it kind of, like,
Mm-hmm.
has the advantage because it kind of absorbs it, but... Yeah, that's true, Spencer. Alright.
How Mana Skin has it, and Mana Zone is superior to Mana Skin. So you can't say that Dimension/Equinox is high universal in AP. And also, Death Thrust only uses a portion of Yami's Mana Zone, because he needs to keep up with Black Moon, and we see him...
So I think you can make the argument that it's actually not. Like, he's condensing the entire Mana Zone, and then after Death Thrust, he has the Mana Zone again, like... I don't know. It's like, different.
You can just recast it.
Yeah.
Like, using that clip from the anime makes the argument on his part even worse, because you just physically see the size of the Mana Zone with Black Moon in it before, and you see the where the barriers are, where the edge of the Mana Zone is, and you see the whole thing shrink in and compress down into his arm before he releases Death Thrust. So, like, he can just, like, the anime in particular makes it pretty blatant that he's just recasting his Mana Zone every time after a Death Thrust.
That wasn't Mana Zone, Spencer. That was just Fauna's and Vedo's high magic power.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is where you can make the argument that Mana Zone, or not Mana Zone, magic power gives you power nullification if you significantly overpower somebody.
Yeah, which, like, technically you can do with Mana Zone but that's just because Mana Zone gives you a massive pool of mana beyond what you normally would have.
Yeah.
Him use Death Thrust while Black Moon is still active, so it would logically be weaker.
So he can use, because so basically Black Moon, it's a combination of Black Hole and Mana Zone, which is why he can condense the Mana Zone but also still have his Black Hole.
Yeah.
Like, and like you said, and like we can see, like, he condensed his entire Mana Zone into the attack. Like, this is more evidence of him using all of the power in the Mana Zone than the Dorothy argument.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, to be honest.
Yeah.
It feels like his arguments kind of just like trip over themselves. Honestly, like the more you like think of them, they just, I don't know.
Yeah. John Wick on speed. That's what he's trying to go against. He's trying to go against the idea of Death Thrust being over a full power dimension slash, that being Equinox.
Yeah, which we'll get into why that's wrong. I think he has a little bit more to say on it.
Dimension slash Equinox. The third reason is because Death Thrust isn't actually confirmed to be compared to regular Dimension Slash, since in the page before the statement of Yami needing a stronger and faster attack, Yami says that he will get up close to Dante and slash him, but wait, cutting him won't work. Which, based on that, you could argue that Yami's statement of needing a stronger attack could be referring to his slashes that he would do up close to Dante, which would be a regular slash with a sword.
Can I take this one, please?
Yeah.
Please.
Oh my god. Man.
Okay, this one is horrendous. Because first of all, he's talking about slashing attacks, and Igneel's argument is, oh well, because he's talking about getting up close and slashing him, that means he can't be talking about Dimension Slash, and because it's saying slashing attacks. First of all, Dimension Slash and Dimension slash Equinox both still cut things. They cut space, but that is still cutting. So that's a moot. Then, additionally, in this very fight, because again, his whole argument is, oh well, he has to get up close, so that means he can't be using Dimension Slash because Dimension Slash is a ranged attack. I think he brings that up in a couple of seconds. But in this fight, we see Yami use a Dimension Slash up close, while he charges Dante down, coats his sword in Dimension Slash, and slashes at him in the anime. And then in both continuities, you also have EI Slash, which is the properties of Dimension Slash applied to his sword, and combined with Iaido, which is a sword drawing technique. It's specifically the whole point of the attack is that it is you getting up close to the opponent and slashing with your blade from the scabbard, or from the... not Habaki. I'm stupid. I'm forgetting Japanese sword terms. I'm a Hema guy. But yeah, no, it's the whole thing is it's a sword drawing technique. He's using Iaido. That's why it's called EI Slash.
Yeah. But wait, what is the
but yeah, we even see him go past...
has Dimension Slash properties?
Well, I mean, in the anime, first of all, it's given the exact same visual effect, as Dimension Slash, but also we do see that Yami's normal cutting attacks, when he does land them, aren't able to actually get through Dante, or at the very least can't get through him very far, whereas EI Slash cuts him in half, effortlessly.
Yeah, I slash above new shadow style quick draw. Yeah, bro, that's true.
it's literally just a better version of new shadow style. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what I was gonna say now. Do you have anything to say, Toxic?
I do not, because I actually didn't know about the argument of EI Slash having properties of Dimension Slash until now, Loki.
Yeah.
I did not notice the anime gave him that same effect. That's actually...
Well, and here's the thing, is that Singularity is just gonna nullify the attacks anyways. It doesn't, that's why he needed the stronger and faster attack. I don't think that, trying to say that, oh, he just, the regular slashes, they're not gonna work because they're gonna get nullified by Singularity, or get absorbed by Singularity, or distorted, or whatever.
Well,
because, the Singularity just absorbs the attacks around Dante.
Yeah.
So, I don't, let me see, I think I put some in the Discord.
Slashes slash, no Guns and Roses, that's crazy.
So yeah, so he actually warped my Dimension Slash attack. So it's it's distorting the attacks. And then he says, I need a stronger, faster attack. Then he even says that he's surpassing his limits. This is limits surpassed Yami, which implies it's his strongest spell.
Yeah, it's really blatant. You need to put a lot of work into trying to construct an argument against it, and even when you do, it's not very solid, because again, it's such a blatant thing, man.
Yeah, and it's if Dimension Slash Equinox would have worked, why didn't he use it? Why does he need to come up with a brand new spell? Because Death Rush is launched from a range. Yeah, I don't look at the argument. I'm gonna replay the last few seconds just to see if there's any points I missed.
Or with a pronged one word is that he will get up close to Dante and slash him. But wait, cutting him won't work. Which, based on that, you could argue that Yami's statement of needing a stronger attack could be referring to his slashes that he would do up close to Dante, which would be a regular slash with a sword or with a coated sword, but nothing to do with Dimension Slash, since that attack is only ever used for long range slashes and not up.
He literally shows on panel something that isn't long range. Or not panel.
Yeah, no, that's
he
the
literally
thing.
shows Yami
That's
Dimension Slash right in front of him.
Yeah, that's the thing I brought up earlier, where
Yeah.
he's like, oh, Dimension Slash is only used from a range, and it's like, literally in this exact fight, we see Yami charge up and use Dimension Slash right up close.
And
So
he's
that's
done
just
that
not true.
on Zagrid, too. He went up right and close and did Dimension Slash on him the first one. It's like, no, he's used it close range multiple times. Like, what?
Close.
I think it's
Outliers.
because I think the confusion on that comes from the cinematic timing. It's like similar to the whole argument that like, oh well, Dimension Slash takes a lot of time to charge up, and that it's like we see numerous times that Yami can just like send that shit.
That's fair.
But people like get confused by the anime because like they give it a lot of oomph because it's a like it's like one of his biggest moves.
Yeah.
So you want to make it dramatic, but that cinematic timing catches people out sometimes.
Needs enough distance to use a Dimension Slash due to how the Dimension Slash is launched. And we also know he wasn't thinking about using Dimension Slash at this moment because he said that Dimension Slash is useless because Dante will just warp it. The fourth reason is because...
Yeah, but it's gonna do that to any attack. Like...
Yeah, it's not even like you can say, oh, well, it only warps magic, because we see it warp space itself.
Yeah.
And, like, even when Asta and Ghost use Mirror Brigade for the, like, Mirror Black Meteorite and all that, and Dante just warps space, they all just go through him at different angles.
Yeah.
And he's, like, completely untouched.
Yeah, like,
It's like, Asta's made of physical matter, so are the swords.
Yeah, why would Dimension Slash be warped but not regular slashes? Or whatever.
It's just a
Vibes.
really weird argument.
Vibes.
Basically, yeah, it's... Not to be that guy, I'm gonna get this one out now so I don't end up going on a rant about it later, but, like, a lot of the arguments in this video are basically just purely vibes-based. It's a very reactionary set of arguments.
Yeah.
There's very little actual logical through line to them. You'll also, people in chat will notice, as we get further through, he kind of just throws out as many different, separate, unconnected arguments as possible, which is basically more so to try and make his audience think that the more consistent argument is untrue by proposing as many alternatives as possible, rather than actually trying to like convince his audience of any one in particular. Because he doesn't care about whether people like what people actually believe, and he doesn't care about like trying to find a consistent interpretation. He cares about making sure people don't buy into Uni Black Clover. At the end of the day, that is the only thing he cares about, and it's made pretty blatant in this video.
Yeah, I could see.
Yeah,
I could
just
see
thought I'd get that one out now,
because
just so I
Dimension
don't end
Slash
up on a massive rant later.
or any other version of it, as of right now, doesn't scale to Yami at all, because Dimension Slash cuts space and doesn't actually have attack potency. Just think about it.
Wrong.
Glamour World is a space, right?
So, yeah, we know for a fact that even though Glamour World is a hex, and this is something I've also talked to him before, and he actually said earlier in the video that just because something's a hex doesn't mean it also doesn't have force. And so, yes, like, cutting space is the hacks aspect of Glamour World. Or not Glamour World, oh my god, Dimension Slash. Cutting space, that's the hacks part. But it's stated multiple times in the series that there's also force or attack potency to it. Like, for example, when Charla goes against Dimension Slash, she says, of our two attacks, the magnitude of the magic in mine was far greater. It says, even so, his spell split mine in two, weakens momentum and protected the town. On top of that, it's still enough power to reach me, even to hit my gauntlet. So it's like, that's one of the statements that, and there's multiple, that Glamour World, or sorry, Dimension Slash does have force too. So, and the whole point of is...
The fact
is like if
The fact
yeah,
that
sure,
Charlotte was
this
able to stop it as well.
cutting Dimension Slash itself is hacks, but if you cut it so hard, like if the force of the cut causes it to collapse and destroy it, that's the actual force part. And even if like it was majority the actual hacks and only like the minority was the force, it would still scale to it if it's an infinite size space.
Mm-hmm.
So like that,
Yeah.
like Dimension Slash, Equinox is not the strongest spell. Death Thrust is. Well, you can even argue that Shadow's Playground is, like with full monozone full release.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Another actual. First of all, I do just want to point out the fact that Sharla's spell was able to block Dimension Slash. Like, yeah, it got through, but as she mentioned in that scene, it only got to her gauntlet. I mean, she actually like physically stopped the blow, despite the fact that it cut space, just by putting enough force against it that it couldn't continue to go through. So that is another blatant example, even beyond her just explaining it. But also, we see in Sword of the Wizard King, Yami, Fuegoleon, and Nozel use a combo spell version of Dimension Slash. I believe it's Scorching Light, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And Jester's able to take the hit because of his barrier magic, which he's able to coat his body in, which, negates spatial manipulation.
Yeah.
But he still takes damage from the blow, not masses, but it still hurts him. So he's negated the space cutting property, but it still did damage, which is another blatant demonstration of the fact that it does have force behind it.
Yep.
So
and
one of them ones.
You can even argue that version is stronger than Equinox because it's stated that they surpassed their limits to do the combo spell. It's a little debatable because they were weak as fuck, but I don't know.
Even then, like, their bases should be so far beyond the versions of them in this fight, in the Captain's Battle. Then, like, combining that with them surpassing their limits and the fact it's a combo spell, with combo spells being exponentially greater in power than the sum of their component parts. Like, with all of that combined, it should be way beyond Equinox. And then later on, we have Army against Dante, surpassing his limits, creating the strongest spell in Death Thrust. So it's like, I don't know, man.
It's pretty in your face.
Yeah.
It's really blatant.
That's funny, Spencer, because I remember it used to be the OG Universal Black Clover Dorothy arguments, and now he disagrees. It's just so funny. All right.
We see it shatter. That doesn't mean Dimension Slash has a force, because we see Dimension Slash and Dimension Slash Equinox.
Well, so like I think that actually it shattering is evidence, because the shattering isn't even anywhere near where the slash was. Like, and if you cut something, like the argument I usually bring up is like if you're cutting a pizza and you use a pizza cutter, and Yami comes over and layers that in Dimension Slash, and you just slowly press it against the pizza, it's gonna cut through it like butter because it's cutting space. But then, if you like slam the pizza cutter down and the pizza explodes all over the wall, that's kind of what's happening with Dimension Slash and Glamour World, is that he's cutting it with the hacks, but the force of the cut is causing Glamour World to basically explode. Like, in places where the cut didn't even actually, like closely happen, like...
I think another good example of that kind of thing is if any of you have seen cut tests with swords and stuff. I mentioned I'm a HEMA guy, so I watch a lot of sword content. And when you see people doing cut tests, you often see that, like, whether they're using, like, wooden cord, or, like, tatami with a wooden dowel in it, or whether they're, like, doing more destructive tests against, like, chunks of wood, you will often see that the blade will strike in one place, and that, like, with the wooden dowel on tatami, that's normally more of an edge alignment thing, but particularly when you're just striking raw wood, you will see that there is damage to the wood beyond where the blade reached. You will see, like, cracks that form in the structure, sometimes stemming from where the blade hit, but reaching far outside of the blade's actual, like, length, and, like, going, like, down... opposite, like, away from the flat of the blade. just because of the sheer amount of force behind the strike. So that's another like example of like just like that is a real thing that happens. That is just a property of like how force behaves when applied to an object on a smaller point.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, I am a sword guy.
I do not this time.
Alright, cool.
Has a force because we see Dimension Slash and Dimension Slash Equinox cut boulders in half, but we don't see the boulders' halves shattered to pieces. When Yami.
Yeah, so why is it like just because sometimes it doesn't destroy the boulders or whatever doesn't mean that it doesn't have a force? Like we have the statements, we have it showing on screen with Glamour World too. Just because it doesn't destroy the boulders it cuts doesn't mean it doesn't have a force. Like,
yeah, the other thing I should mention is that like not to bring up cut testing again, but like if the force applied to a cut is more than sufficient and you've got decent edge alignment, normally the cut will just sail through as long as you're cutting a reasonable target. Which in this case, we're dealing with characters that have infinite to potentially beyond 3D infinite levels of power. Like cutting, like rocks, like actual just a straight up rock, random rock. Like yeah, no, they've got more than enough force. You're not going to have to worry about breaking the blade, well, partially because the blade's not making contact because it's a projectile slash. But yeah, no, like you're not like with that just that property of physics. Because the force is so much greater than what's necessary to get through the target, it's just going to sail through, like zip right through.
yeah.
Especially considering with cutting space, like it's a spatial slash. So that force is being focused on a point that is smaller than any like component of space to like cut through it.
Yeah.
Which means like edge alignment is basically just not going to be an issue. So if anything, the fact that it specifically caused a fracturing in the Glamour World scenario would just show that Dorothy has relativity to that version of Yami. Because it wasn't just a clean slash that went straight through. And it did cause that fracturing. That shows that Glamour World put up some resistance. Which we know it can do from the Dorothy and Reeve fight, where Reeve is able to reinforce Glamour World to keep it up for as long as she can while they're clashing.
I'm trying to think of other examples to mention.
Oh, that's pretty good point, yeah.
But I mean, like, we have the Glamour World shit. We have like the statements from Charla that it does have a force. Like let's say, for example, a character has complete resistance to power nullification, or not power. Sorry, spatial manipulation, right? And then that character is only town level. The Dimension Slash is still gonna kill them, even if the space doesn't do anything to them, because of the force of the Dimension Slash.
Yeah, they're gonna get splatted.
Yeah.
Or more, I guess, more cleaved into.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think, I can't think of the series, but, like, I've seen and heard of series where there's characters that have cut, like, dimensions or universes in half, and the cut, like, just made them into different universes. It didn't destroy them. But, like, in this case, Yami's cut did destroy Glamour World. But, regardless. Oh, shit. Spencer's about to pull a Yami because he had too much protein. See ya, bro.
Oh, take care, man.
Me in the Shadow Palace uses Dimension Slash Equinox with Elf Charlotte, amping him, and we see it travel to Zagrid, which cuts him in half, but we see the other boulders that the slash cut didn't get destroyed, or are the boulders Zagrid level. In this instance, or how about when Yami
that's so
cuts a boulder
disingenuous.
thrown at
The
him
legendary argument,
by
guys.
Dante.
It's coming.
And Yami used Dimension Slash on it, but the boulders are cut in half, but it doesn't shatter. So no, I don't think just because Glamour World shattered, that means Dimension Slash has AP. Also, Glamour World is mostly hollow, kind of like...
Oh, remember how we started with, oh, Glamour World has so much magic in it, that's how Yami destroyed Glamour World, but now all of a sudden it's hollow?
Yeah.
This is what I mentioned
just
before.
realized
He's
that.
not caring about making a consistent argument. His only goal is to throw out as many potential debunks in the eyes of his audience that it seems just statistically unlikely that Uni Black Clover is true.
Yeah, like, it's, like, if you're saying magic is everywhere, then it's not hollow. Because there's magic there. And that would mean that Yami would have to destroy the magic, too. Like,
Exactly, which considering we know that magic power can stop Dimension Slash from the Sharla example and from the Jester example, like, it means he would have to be cutting through that if that's the argument you're making. But again,
Yeah.
not to keep hammering on this point, he's trying to make it a game of statistics. He's not trying to convince anyone of anything.
Yeah. And, like,
You can tell with how he's structuring the video.
on the screen, you can see the stars in Glamour World. Like, even if you say there's no magic, there's nothing, it's just a bunch of stars, like, it would still be an infinite, like, void full of stars. It's not really a void because they're stars.
Not even just the stars. You also just see the random shit floating around, like the paintings, the teacups, the sweets, the weird blobs that I can't tell from that particular shot if they're meant to be planets or just like marbles or something that are huge.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I watched the anime, to be fair.
Right.
Multi-boulder level.
Z, sound my yapper, bro.
Yeah, Patron 5000 here decided that being inconsistent is okay. Real Hatsune, bro.
a room that only has a few things in it compared to the size of the room. So if you were to cut the room, or whichever room you're in now, in half, it would probably shatter. But if it was something that has solid mass, like a boulder, then it probably won't shatter when it's cut in half. Also, all hexes in fiction in general uses...
That point is just irrelevant, because it's a fucking universe, dude.
Yeah, no, and also, again, like, that's just not how physics works. Again, it's like, yes, something that is hollow is more likely to deform when force is applied to it, if that force is not so great that it can't provide any meaningful resistance.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's a matter of how much force is applied to the object. You know, if you focus the power to destroy a planet on a wooden box on the edge of a blade, you strike that wooden box, you're going straight through. You're not going to cause the wooden box to, like, shatter.
Explode.
Necessarily. Yeah, no, exactly. Because it can't provide any meaningful resistance. You change that to, like, Kachi Kachin or whatever from Dragon Ball, suddenly it's going to have a lot more trouble, so even if it does damage the box, it's not inherently just going to sail right through. Even if it gets through the box, there's likely going to be some deformation.
Yeah.
Also, can someone else take this next point, because I've been yapping too much and I don't think I could be polite about this one.
Toxic, you gotta step up, bro.
Oh, brother, depending on what this point is,
some energy system to be able to use fiction in general uses some energy system to be able to use said hacks. That doesn't mean the character scales to it. With that logic, Dante scaled to his teleportation. Finral and his brother scales to their spatial magic. Lucius is now time level. Megicula is somehow scales to curses. Meliodas scales to his full counter. Kaguya scales to her expansive True Seeker orb. Vanessa somehow scales to fate, and so on. You get retarded arguments just because hexes use some
What you gotta say that, Toxic?
dude, these examples are just like so fucking like false equivalences to me, bro.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, yeah, these are like cases of like some of these characters just don't scale to their hacks and shit. I think Lucius does personally, but that's just me. But it's like, half of these characters, not even half of these characters, every single one of these characters except Lucius off the dome, like you can't have any like proof of them for like scaling over their abilities. Meanwhile, Yami has like direct statements, literally fucking tells us the readers that he has a spell stronger than Dimension Slash. Like for some of these characters like Finro, Longris, Vanessa, right? Sure, whatever. They don't scale to their hacks. That doesn't inherently have to mean Yami wouldn't scale to his own hacks, quote unquote, because we know Dimension Slash isn't purely just hacks like some of these abilities are. It has AP behind it. It can be tanked, it can be blocked, it can be slowed down, etc. This point is dog shit.
Well, it's just, I don't know, it's weird because like nobody's saying Finral's space level. For one, he's a support mage. Same for Vanessa. Like nobody's saying that Vanessa's fate level. This is very different.
Okay, it's him like straw manning the argument to then try and apply an appeal to absurdity. It's not. Right. Also, can we just talk about all verses in fiction have to use some kind of energy system for their hacks? What? We're just gonna try and make broad sweeping statements about the entirety of fiction now. Is that what we're doing? Like, yes, I suddenly have knowledge of every written work ever conceived, bro. Be for real, man. Like, even just off the dome, you've got, like, the Nephilim from Diablo just being able to, like, choose to exist in a different state to become intangible. No energy system behind that in particular. They just do. It's just vibes. You know, stuff like that. You've got, like, characters who have hacks in verses where there aren't energy systems, like Baki, for example. Where they can just imagine things and they become real in some capacity. Like, you know, Baki and Yujiro being able to, like, have a dinner that is completely imaginary, but they're, like, actually eating, like, and, like, gaining sustenance from it. Or Yujiro being able to take damage from an imaginary fighter when he's training. Not Yujiro, Baki, sorry. But yeah, it's like... It's just not good practice to make broad sweeping statements about the entirety of fiction. Yeah. That's not a good idea. But yeah, also... Sorry, go ahead.
Give me some examples of what are, like, good arguments that debunk Universal Black Clover, because, honestly, I don't think any of the ones that I've heard are very good. Like, even the ones outside of this video, like, I don't think a lot of them are very good. So, what are you about to say, though?
Oh, I was just going to say, the other thing as well is that, like, for example, like, like, if we're saying that people scale to their hacks, then that would make Vanessa fate level. That's just, like, the logic behind that argument is, like, deliberately disingenuous. First of all, for someone to scale to their hacks, the specific hacks in question needs to be something that is scalable. There is no way to quantify the energy needed to manipulate fate, so that's a non sequitur. You don't bother with that. It's the same with, like, making portals, unless there is some specific given rule set in the universe for manipulating that thing, or, like, exerting influence over that thing, that we can use to quantify how much energy that would require. You don't use it, because there's no way to scale it.
Yeah.
Second, yes, there are instances where people don't scale to their hacks. There are also instances where people do. It's a context-dependent thing. You have to look at the surrounding information.
Yeah.
This is why, like, we've been bringing up the stuff for Yami blatantly being over Dimension/Equinox, and, like, scaling to it even when he uses it in the current era. Because there is surrounding information that tells us that it is something that he exerts force with, and the hack's property is just a separate thing attached to it. It's, like, functionally, Dimension Slash is just a dark cloaked black slash with the space cutting property.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Literally.
Like, if you remove the space cutting property, it's just a dark cloaked black slash. It still has the force behind it.
Yeah, it's almost similar to Sukuna. Where he is just targeting space, but it's still one of his slashers. His slashers have AP.
Yeah, no, it's a dismantle. Dismantle is just a property of his curse technique. He can send out slashes at range, when he changes his target to space, it doesn't actually fundamentally change the properties of the slash itself. It just changes what it cuts. So if, like, for example, if we had Jester, like, put in front of, like, True Form Sukuna, and he charged up a World Dismantle, Jester's just gonna tank it, because he can deal with the space cutting aspect of it, and he massively outstats.
Yeah.
So he doesn't need to worry about that.
Old Gamer, I actually did Asa vs. Ichigo like a month ago, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. Z's best argument is that the dimension isn't universe incised. I think that's actually, and no offense, I think that's actually one of the worst arguments, because I think that's actually one of the easiest, most supported points of it, is that it is, at least infinite in size, so...
Reeve just kind of blatantly says it.
But, let's say there's like a debunk to that I haven't heard, feel free. Yeah, but so like, it's just like a pretty like easy to explain. Is like, think of a wall. This wall has higher, like way higher AP, like way higher physical durability than Yami. Dimension Slash cuts through it because it has the spatial cutting, but vice versa. There's a wall that has a barrier around it that protects it from spatial attacks, but it's way lower durability than Yami's AP. Dimension Slash is going to cut it. So it's like, there's two factors Dimension Slash. It's AP, and that it cuts space.
Yeah, so if you combined the two aspects of those walls, you got the really crazy strong wall, and you surrounded it with that, like, spatial manip-proof barrier, and Yami threw Dimension Slash at that one, it's not going to go through because the space-cutting aspect dealt with by the barrier, and then the remaining, like, slash, the force behind it, isn't enough to actually penetrate the wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, let's see.
How much Meme's accent stands out on this stream, bro, is a proper Brit, bro. Don't do me like this. Don't do me like this, bro.
Energy system. All hacks have a level of energy that you need to use it or activate it. So no, it doesn't matter if Yami uses magic to use Dimension Slash. Dimension Slash only scales to Yami if it was shown that he can face tank it. Same with...
That's not true. That's not the only way to show that you scale to something.
What?
Like, we brought up the point that Jester tanks an amped version. Well, not tanks, because he does take damage, but he survives a...
Well, no, that would still be tank. He doesn't no-sell it, but he does tank it. He takes the attack, and he's relatively unharmed.
Yeah, like, I guess, yeah, that's true, because technically the whole, like, root of the word tank is that tanks do still actually take damage, they just can take a lot or whatever. So yeah, like, an amped Dimension Slash that is more powerful than Dimension Slash Equinox, and that is Jester, who we can easily scale Yami above. So yeah, I don't get that. So I don't think it's a good point.
Yami scales higher than Equinox, wouldn't that mean he's potentially extra dimensional like 45D? No. For the you need like additional information for like pretty specific additional information to assert dimensional transcendences. There is stuff for 4D Black Clover. I'm not going to go too much into it. I know Broku's got he covers some of it in the Asta vs Ichigo video. Highly recommend you check it out. It's an amazing video. I know there's also going to be some other stuff coming down the pipeline that I'm not gonna say too much about. But keep an eye out for that.
Dimensional Black Clover.
Bro, that reminds me of the crafty 5D light argument, bro. That.
Oh my god.
That was painful dealing with that, bro. Oh.
Yeah, I mean he's agreed that that's bad, but.
Yeah. I know, it's just, like, I still see people using it, even if he's not.
Yeah, that's true. I still see people say
it's
that comment,
painful,
like, bro, Patra used 5D because he uses light magic. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. For people who aren't aware, basically that argument posits, uses a separate model of dimensional vectors, in which light is considered a fifth-dimensional structure, but that is a completely separate model of the properties of dimensional vectors to the one that is used in scaling. So by that model, it being 5D doesn't actually put it above 3D things. So it's like it just doesn't work. It's a completely separate physical model of the universe. We hitting 5D with this one, boys. No, we're not.
And reason number 5. I should have said this sooner, but it should be fine. But Elf Dorothy saying that here in Glamour World the impossible is possible to Magna practically saying it is impossible for it being infinite. Does it mean that Elf Dorothy is saying it is infinite, or she is agreeing that it's infinite? All it could mean is that it is possible for it to be infinite if she wishes for it to be the case, which she has no.
So this is such a goofy argument. Like, I'm sorry, but if I'm in the desert and I stumble into this random city in the middle of the desert, and they start, like, they say that they have cold food or whatever. I'm like, what, you have cold food in the desert? That's impossible. And then they say, well, here in this town, the impossible is possible. That is them affirming that they have cold food. It's not just saying that it's possible they have cold food. Like, you have, like, it's very, like, basic understanding of the English language is that, yes, it's not, like, it's saying it's possible, but in the way that how you determine, like, what she is saying, in every single, like, in that context, and also the analogy described, that is them saying that is the case. Why is she saying it's possible for her to do it if she didn't do it? Like,
yeah, it's also
such
just
a weird argument.
If you actually look at how the statements are laid out, if you could, not to be a sword Broku, but if you could Broku, I can't speak today.
Yeah.
Broku, if you could rewind back just to that scan real quick, please.
Yeah.
I hate to be a bastard, but
No, you good, bro.
just so I can demonstrate to people. But yeah, so it starts with Locke saying, "There's no border, it's endless," or in some translations, he just outright says infinite.
Yeah.
Magna then contests that by saying, "What? Locke, you moron, that's not even possible." And they have a bit of banter, but then Reeve directly addresses Magna's statement and contradicts it. Reeve being the person who created the spell. Her saying in Glamour World the impossible is possible is her directly going, targeting Magna's statement and directly contradicting. So if you actually just break down how the statement is given, it is a direct affirmation of Locke's position, which is what Magna was going against, which is that it's infinite in size.
Right.
Yo.
Yo.
I'm gonna have to dip out the stream.
Alrighty, bro. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Fair play. Take
Anytime,
care, man. See you
yo.
around.
Alright, stay safe.
Yeah.
See you, bro.
Yeah, y'all stay safe, bros.
Thank
You too,
Peace out.
See you around.
Shout out to yeah, chat. Did you know that Broku is still gonna make that video with me about how expensive Vanessa's OnlyFans would be?
Bro,
soon,
not this
2025.
one again, bro.
Coming soon, 2025.
I'm not gonna happen.
Y'all ain't ready.
Oh my god.
Alright, but peace out though.
Alright, see you, bro.
Take care, mate. See you around.
Yeah. But yeah, we pretty much debunked this point. It's just basically clipping onto, the literalness of the words, not what it actually means. This is her affirming it. This is how language works. But
saying it is impossible for it being infinite, does it mean that Elf Dorothy is saying it is infinite, or she is agreeing that it's infinite? All it could mean is that it is possible for it to be infinite if she wishes for it to be the case, which she has no reason for it to be the case. So you can't say that every time.
That's a weird
real
point.
quick. Yeah, he's trying to assert that there's some hidden mechanic to Glamour World where Dorothy is able to directly exert influence specifically over the size to an infinite extent, which in that case she would still that would still mean that she would scale to it being infinite because it's a mana construct she creates. So at that point, it wouldn't even necessarily matter if it's actually infinite in size or not, because it would still be containing infinite energy and be constructed of infinite energy. So there's that.
Yeah.
But on top of that, there is nothing to even remotely assert that there's this weird size, like, manipulation mechanic of the actual realm of Glamour World. There is no indication of that at any point in the series.
Yeah.
Which it's one of those things where, like, if this was something that was actually an ability that she had, it would have been, like, just based on how she uses it, it would have been something relevant enough to come up in her fights. For example, against Morris. Morris is able to deconstruct Glamour World with his reconstruction magic. He's able to actually destroy the space. So if she's able to make it bigger, create more space, that is a way of fighting him off. But we don't get any indication of that.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
and
it's just a weird argument.
Want to add a point that you can actually make the argument pretty soundly that Glamour World is actually bigger than the living world, which is a universe in Black Clover. Because there was a point where Dorothy is talking about how devils are coming into their world. And in the context is talking about how they're coming in from a different dimension into their dimension. And in that, while she's talking about it, she recreates the world inside of Glamour World. And if you're going to the context that she's talking about dimensions, then it's not crazy to say that she just made the living world inside of Glamour World. Especially not crazy if it's already stated to be an infinite-sized realm.
Yeah, so it's just a really strange argument that's just trying to pull out information that's not present.
Yeah. So it's
so,
more like, yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, Electricion, you wild for that. First said 30 a month. That's crazy. Sorry, only just.
Dorothy
Yeah,
uses
sorry, what were you
Glamour
saying?
World that it is infinite in size. Reason 6. To also support that Glamour World isn't infinite in size, Yami's Dimension / Equinox traveled a infinite distance in finite time, assuming that Glamour World is infinite in size. But the problem is that Dorothy reacted to the slash and moved out of the way after the slash was launched, which makes her have infinite speed. But then we see her get vexed by base Lucifero just breathing, and then a full power Lucifero and True Devil Union Asta fight for 5 seconds, but they are moving around in 5.
Bro doesn't know he just debunked multiversal Dragon Ball. Shit, like Goku and Beerus destroying the Macrocosm, which have multiple infinite-sized realms, but they're fighting in the Tournament of Power. Damn, bro. I didn't realize that Dragon Ball's not
Crazy.
universal. It's not.
I think the weirdest part of this is just bro blatantly showing that he doesn't understand how infinite levels of power work. Basically, for those who aren't as deep in the source as us, there are levels of infinity. If you want to get really into the maths of it, you've got countable infinities, which is basically like take a list of every whole number. That is a countable infinity because you can assign a number in order to each one because that's what it is. But then, you can have finitely greater infinities. Like if you instead had a list of every whole number, but each number was repeated twice, that would be a larger infinity than the former one, but to a finite extent. But then you also have infinitely greater infinities, which is when you're getting into set theory, like the power set of a thing, and that's where you get Aleph 1, Aleph 2, Aleph 3. But yeah, no, basically, all that would mean, in the example he gave, is that Dorothy is in the Glamour World instance, is a lower level of infinite speed than Asta and Lucifero and that in Spade, which is perfectly consistent. And also the whole thing about, they're moving finite distances, that's, finite distances and finite time, that's fine. There's no inconsistency there, because infinite speed, you are still moving around in finite time, just units of time that are infinitely close to zero. And that's not even getting into the whole thing of perceived time, which would go more into if you're using the higher speed metas than infinite, which do exist, but I'm not going to go too much into them.
Yeah. It's like there's times
but
where
yeah.
they're not going to be moving in the fight. Like if they're standing there, like talking or whatever, and time can pass too. Like, and it's just weird to argue that because of a speed feat, and then later weird instances with time, that means that the power of the feat doesn't matter. It's also just, I think, hypocritical logic because, from what I remember, he argues infinite or inaccessible seven deadly sins, even though that verse also has time frames at some point. Where I think it's actually Merlin's like cocoon thing, where there's actual time frames. So it's like that would also have to mean he cannot believe it, which it's gonna be one of those things where it is inconsistent speed wise, and either the time thing is weird, but they're still infinite speed, or you can say it's inconsistent and they're not infinite speed, but it doesn't change the scaling. Like again, like if this logic was to be taken, you can't have Goku and Beerus be multiversal because they fight in the tournament of power that has a time limit. Like that would be make them infinite speed. So, yeah.
Yes. Again, not to keep harping on this point, but bro is not trying to actually convince people of anything. He's just trying to throw out as many quote-unquote debunks as he can to make it seem statistically unlikely that Uni Black Clover is true to his audience, which are presumably not particularly familiar with the series.
Yeah.
Considering, from what I know, he does a decent variety of different verses and stuff, so he's not like a particular verse power scaler.
And so Flam, it is Dorothy does react to it just because she is like looking at it and she dodges. It doesn't necessarily matter if it wasn't targeted for her, but
yeah, no, like it was coming at her. We see like the slash is about to hit her and she moves out of the way, so she does still react to it even if Yami wasn't deliberately aiming at her.
Yeah.
Finite distances in finite time, and Asta at this point is the strongest, meaning that since these characters are above Dorothy, who should have infinite speed but gets blitzed by base Lucifero, then her glamour world can't be infinite, since infinite...
What did he put on screen for a sec?
Then...
What makes this worse is Rillo was amping the captains with a spell to make them supposedly, and I'm guessing, invincible.
He means invincible because he does put on
Twilight
the invincible scan later on.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, and also Lucifero didn't beat her by breathing. He literally
he like swats her away.
Yeah, like I mean, obviously it was casual, but it's not like something like somebody just passively existing or whatever. Right?
Yeah, he's not like Raccoon versus Gohaning her.
Yeah.
Her glamour world can't be infinite, since infinite speed is based on her realm being infinite in size. But if it never was infinite in size, then this feat of Lucifero and Asta would make more sense and consistent. So
like even if I steelman this, or I guess we steelman it and say it's not infinite, it still has contained the living world, which is a universe. But it's not a defeater. I need to see if I can find that.
And again, like it's just demonstrating that he doesn't understand how like levels of infinity function mathematically.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find the panel, and it's made clear in the anime that Dorothy does just like this is not like some weird like or like cool way to like for Tabata to like highlight the world. Like no, she like it literally shows in the anime that she is creating this.
Rady's feet go burr. Which Rady's feet is this, Tonio? That you're talking about? While Broku's looking for scans, I'll just keep an eye on chat. Minus spelling mistake.
For stream, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it unless you're looking at the stream. But so
I've got the stream chat up.
Yeah, so this panel right here, guys, like she's talking about devils coming into their world, and this is like talking about dimensions. And then this right here, like she actually, if you watch the anime, she is creating this behind her. And again, it's the context of, and let's see if I can find the other statement from Dante, where he's talking about the completely different dimensions. is that? Oh, yeah. So then, like, in the context of what Dorothy's talking about, it's this, like, this world, the underworld, they're different universes. Again, so that's an argument right there that Dorothy created the living universe inside of Glamour World. Again, if, like, the manga doesn't show it, like, her actually creating it, but the anime shows her literally creating it, so that's what she's doing. And plus, I guess that just makes the most sense, because all of a sudden the living world's behind her in the manga, but...
Oh, happened for a second. I don't know what happened there. YouTube being a functional... Whoa, what is happening? YouTube? Want to be a functional website, YouTube?
Oh, yeah. He's talking about Roddy's moving inside of time.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I mean, you can use that if you want to get it really early, but there's more consistent stuff for it later. Again, I'm not going to go too much into it, but yeah. I've been over it in the Discord enough times. Which, speaking of which, hey guys, you wanna like talk to us and like hear stuff about like more of our takes? Just chill with a load of cool people. Join the Discord. Link in the description.
Hell yeah!
It's very cool. It's a very funky place.
So therefore, it isn't infinite in size. So now that that argument is up in flames, let's get into the second argument for Universal Black Clover. So the second argument is based on Dorothy creating Glamour World, a infinite space, and it scales to her. We also see her fight herself, and that destroyed Glamour World, and anyone who scales to her or her spell makes them high universal. So the first reason why I disagree with this is because not only is her Glamour World being infinite in size is questionable, but you can interpret the feat of her spell wasn't able to withstand the dreams is because multiple Dorothys are trying to control Glamour.
So again, he says you can argue it. So this is another appeal to possibility, not actually substantiating the burden. Because it doesn't ever say that the dream world is collapsing because it breaks a rule or can't handle like the dreams of two people or whatever. And if you go by the different translations, it says it can't support or can't withstand the dreams of two people. It's just as easy, if not more supported, that their fight is so powerful that it's destroying Glamour World.
Yeah,
especially
considering
like, if you make the argument that
creations...
if one Dorothy can already create Glamour World, why couldn't the fight of two Dorothys destroy a Glamour World?
Yeah. Especially, again, because, like, the whole thing, like, the dreams being referred to in that statement are the things being created that they are using to fight.
Yeah.
So being, it can't support the dreams of two people is, like, it can't support two of us clashing. Like, especially because if it's like, just two Dorothys means that the spell ceases to function, they're literally fighting in that panel, so that cannot be it.
Yeah.
Like, if it was two people exerting control over Glamour World causes the entire spell to break down completely, as he's trying to assert, then the scene in which we get that statement wouldn't have occurred, because the moment the moment real Dorothy showed up, the whole, like, realm would have just gone poof.
Mm. Yeah, and it's just like...
It's just a really weird argument.
Just because, like, I always, like, liken it to Goku versus Beerus, because, like, their fight's gonna destroy the universe. So people argue that, if their dreams are too much for Glamour World, that means they can't be infinite. But it's like, well, why can Goku and Beerus clash? Why can't that be too much? I mean, it's a little different, but it's similar in a sense.
Yeah,
it's
but
two
like
people fighting. But...
If anything, it's actually more supported in this case that each individually scales to the structure being affected, in this case Glamour World, because obviously both of them are capable of creating Glamour World. And also they're clashing infinitely, so one of them being able to create Glamour World would mean the other would have the power to do so anyway, because they're clashing evenly.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with two, like, essentially, not to get too mathsy with it, but because you're dealing with two sets of infinity clashing with each other, the resulting total force is a greater infinity
Yeah.
than that which one individual can produce. Which means that, the realm produced and created by one individual, like one of those sets of infinities, wouldn't be able to withstand it, because it's a greater amount of energy. It's functionally the same as with finite power, just the maths works ever so slightly differently.
Yeah.
So
earn 160. So if you're saying it's a visualization, but the issue with also what you brought up is that what she makes is the real thing. Well, if she's thinking of the living world, that's what it would make, is the real living world, just like it made real tea. So
especially considering we know
visualization. That's how I see it.
Especially considering, like, we know how Glamour World works. She thinks of the thing, she creates it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a willing process, as we see with Reed, which he's going to bring up a different interpretation of this later on. But we see the group use cotton and smoke and that to create a silhouette of Dorothy that Reeve sees and thinks of Dorothy, and that automatically has her create Dorothy.
Yeah.
So it's not like a conscious process. So if she's thinking of the real world as a whole, it's automatically going to do that.
Yeah.
Glamour World at once, which could then lead to the spell being disrupted and making it fall apart, which kinda makes sense as to why Dorothy never creates clones of herself. It doesn't necessarily mean that due to their power, Glamour World was gonna be destroyed. So you can have multiple interpretations on this feat, and
you can have multiple interpretations, but if you're gonna say it's not universal, you have to argue why your interpretation is the most supported. So I don't think just arguing an alternative does much, especially with the evidence that's already set up, and also the evidence I just added with, she thought of the living world and she creates it inside of it. So that's arguably, like, if you already have a universal sized realm and you make another universe inside of it, that could be low multiversal right there. But regardless,
there's also what was I gonna say? Oh, right, I was just gonna say, Flam, you mentioned, like, creation feats over destruction feats, just real quick. The reason that creation feats are over destruction feats is because to create something from just energy, it's like equivalent to, like, a really high level, it's like subatomic destruction or something like that. Essentially, it's just because, like, traditional destruction feats are like fragmentation or high fragmentation, or like pulverization, stuff like that. So it's just that creating something is equivalent, like creating something from energy is equivalent to a really ridiculously high form of destruction. And because those higher forms of destruction are rarer, that's why creation feats are generally considered over destruction feats.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not directly addressing the video, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And also, like, just because Dorothy doesn't make clones of herself, that's not, like, for one, we don't see a lot of her fights. We've literally only seen Reeve versus the Black Bulls, and then Sally, and then eventually the actual Dorothy is created. And then we see Dorothy versus Yami, but we don't even see Morris versus Dorothy. That's
we get, like, the tail end of it,
so,
yeah.
Like,
we do see, like, a tiny bit of it, but not much.
So, like, we don't really see it, right? And I mean, why would she necessarily need to if she can make, like, she made a shit ton of clones of Yami. Like, she's gonna fight according to her imagination with her dreams. But just because she doesn't do something doesn't actually negate the point. But
yeah, also, again, with how Glamour World's creation works, like the creation inside of Glamour World works, it's Dorothy has to think of something to create it. And from what we see, she's actually a very selfless person, so, like, just off that, it's unlikely she's going to be thinking of herself most of the time when she's fighting, especially because, captains have to think about their squads, they have to think about, like, getting the mission done, they have to think about the broader consequences of what they're doing, stuff like that, which is stuff we do see consistently in the series.
yeah.
So that's another reason as well, if you want to go with the whole, oh, well, why doesn't she make clones of herself?
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good point.
Trying to say that it's because they were that powerful, you would then have to prove that that's the only case. It's the only logical scenario. The burden of proof would be on you to prove that that's the case. The second...
Yeah, so, I mean, we kind of already addressed it. Just bringing up an alternative opinion doesn't debunk it. Especially when, like, I mean, he references my video. Like, I already provide a sense of substantiation. Like I already said, there's a lot of points in that video that he doesn't actually address. Like, how in that video I show that Yami has attack potency with his Dimension Slash. But that's not addressed in this video. And, you know, other points. Yeah, anything else to add?
Again, not to keep harping on this point, but again, it's like the reason he's not being consistent with himself and the reason he's just throwing stuff out that and not even trying to support it is, again, because he's just trying to make as many possible, throw out as many other possible interpretations to his audience, who, again, presumably aren't as familiar with the series, based on, like, what he makes and stuff. To make it seem statistically unlikely that the Uni Black Clover stuff is true, based on the information they have available. Because, again, he's also, like, deliberately limiting the information that he's providing when he provides the arguments before he gets into the counter-arguments.
Yeah.
He's not, again, I keep harping on about this, but I just think it's important to keep in mind, he's not trying to convince anyone. He is just trying to drown out the argument with as many other, like, quote-unquote debunks as he can, essentially. But yeah.
Okay.
Second reason is Glamour World is just a spell that creates a space where Dorothy has subjective pocket reality manipulation. Not only that, but the best feat...
That's not an argument, though.
He just lists,
like,
okay, it's a spell. Congratulations, you have eyes. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you trying to say here?
Yeah, that's
Like,
that's
what
not
do
an
you mean?
argument.
That's what they do in Black Clover. They use spells because they have magic.
Yeah, and it being
like,
a pocket reality with subjective, you know, whatever. That doesn't mean that it's not an infinite size realm. Like,
Hit doesn't scale to time skip because it's just a technique that creates a realm. Like, what? What are we doing here?
Oh my god.
Kaguya doesn't scale to her dimensions. Like Kaguya doesn't scale to, like, Yorotsu. I forget the name of the ability. Because it's just a jutsu that creates dimensions. Like, what? Like, you're not actually substantiating why that means it doesn't scale in a verse where everything they do basically are spells. Or in the Naruto case, are those jutsu. In the Dragon Ball case, are those techniques. It's the equivalent of saying Goku doesn't scale to the Kamehameha because it's a key manipulation technique. It's just weird. You know, like, it's using the same energy that they use to, like, amplify their physicals. It is very consistently shown, ridiculously consistently shown, that the amount of that energy that they put into those spells directly impacts the power of them. I mean, we even get a direct correlation, like a 1-to-1 correlation, thanks to Zora's traps that double the magic power of a spell, and it doubles both their AP and their speed, as we see with people getting blitzed by their own spells when they're bounced back at them. So, like, we have that direct correlation. We know that it's running off the same thing that they use to amplify their physical abilities. You need to provide substantiation as to why they wouldn't scale to it. And he's just not.
Maybe he will more, because I don't think he's done, but...
I don't recall him doing so.
Yeah.
He just goes into the older level.
We'll just continue and see if he does.
Has, without her Glamour World spell, is that she destroyed a couple of boulders. But with Glamour World, she can be stronger due to reality manipulation. But again, that's just hacks.
No, so he literally... Actually, I think he talks about some more points, so I'm going to let him talk a bit more, then I'll talk about boulder level Dorothy.
It's so
And I know you're gonna say, Sally said she created Glamour World.
Yeah, nigga. It's because Versky is creating Glamour World via spell, via hacks.
It's not like she's flexing her aura and like popping out dimensions, right? She's not doing no Cath feat. She ain't doing.
Here's the funny thing. I love that because I've talked to him. He thinks that Cath making a random dimension with no size given is universal, but then doesn't do the same thing for Glamour World. Like, this is the thing where I think this is the clear bias, because he's a Seven Deadly Sins guy. Cath creating a random dimension with no given size is automatically given universal, and Dorothy doing it, given a size, her doing it multiple times is for whatever reason lesser than Cath. And it gets even worse because I think he brings up a couple more characters when I played out for a little bit more.
Yes, he
Demon
does.
King or Supreme Deity feat.
Supreme Deity and Demon Lord make their dimensions off screen, and we don't know how they did it. Like,
yeah, you and Toxic were talking about this off camera.
Yeah, these feats by the Supreme Deity and Demon Lord, they do it off screen. We don't know how hard it was for them to do it. We don't know how long it took them for them to do it. But why and also they're like, you can make the argument that maybe they're not as big as Glamour World. Because, like, sure, we see stars in the sky, but we see that in Glamour World, and it's stated to be infinite. So, like, you have Dorothy stated to be infinite in size, you see stars, and she does it on screen multiple times, but for whatever reason, it's not as good as Supreme Deity or Demon Lord. And also, we don't even know if they did it with hacks. We don't even know if they did it with hacks or power either.
Didn't Toxic also bring up something about, like, them potentially having, like, drawn in magic from their surroundings to do so? Like,
yeah, because
I'm not a Seven Deadly Sins guy. I dragged myself through that manga once, and I'm not going through it again. But
yeah,
I do remember Toxic bringing that up off camera.
I think the reason why Toxic was bringing that up is because we see that with Arthur recreating parts of Camelot, he's stealing aspects of, like, the real world and bringing it over. Like, time by time, he's, like, creating new Camelot or whatever it's called in his dimension.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. But that's why, this is where I think it's biased. Because, again, Cath creates some random dimension with no size. He thinks that's universal. Supreme Deity, Demon Lord create dimensions off-screen. Don't know too much about it. Don't know their full scope of size. That's universal. But Dorothy doing it over and over again with a stated size on screen is for whatever not accepted. This is, like, what I think is critical when it comes to, like, discussing Black Clover versus Seven Deadly Sins debates.
Not only Dorothy doing it over and over again, like, on screen with a stated size, but also consistently showing that people who scale relative to Dorothy are able to significantly affect and even destroy Glamour World as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Which just provides even more substantiation for the fact that she would scale to it, because even if you don't want to say, like, even if you wanted to say, oh, well, it's hacks, so she doesn't scale to the creation for whatever reason, despite the fact it's a mana construct that she creates with her own mana. Like, she scales to people who can destroy it. So that would mean she scales to it anyway.
Right.
It's just, it's not great, bro. But yeah, bro also brings up a couple of other characters.
Yeah,
I'll let that run out, and I'll pause. Fair enough. Yeah.
It's where they just create their dimensions because they're that powerful, or some Otsutsuki feat. Well, some of the Otsutsuki's use hacks, but you know what I mean. So,
I'm sorry, Otsutsuki. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. I messed up speaking earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, first of all, he says, like, oh, the Otsutsuki don't scale either because they use hacks. But, like, we just blatantly know that the Otsutsuki do scale to the dimensions they create. Kagi's expansive truth-seeking orb, which he also mentioned, like, earlier, it's like, oh, that's a hack, Kagi doesn't scale to it. Yes, she does. Blatantly, she does. She is not only is she the one pouring the chakra into the expansive truth-seeking orb to, like, expand it, That's what the expansive part of expansive truth seeking orb is. But also, she was going to recreate the spaces that were destroyed, which, depending on whether you use like just the manga or the guides, would either be one of or all 6 of her dimensions. And so recreating them would mean that she scales to it just inherently.
Yeah.
So like again, and I think that the most damning part is he's not even bringing these up as examples to give information on what you would be looking for when you're trying to figure out if a character scales to their creation feat or not. He's not like dissecting why the Demon King and the Supreme Deity from Seven Deadly Sins scale to their dimensions, and contrasting that against the information around Dorothy's feats, to try and actually show what it would mean for what Dorothy would need, what evidence would need to be present for her to scale to it. He's not doing that. He's just listing off characters he likes.
Yeah.
Which isn't, again, as Broku mentioned before, it's, and as I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the stream, it's just blatantly showing his bias.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. Like, yeah, you can't say that Cath is universal for creating a random dimension, and then argue that Dorothy's Glamour World isn't, like, universal in size. Yeah, so that's where I think it's just clearly biased. But I understand it can be hard to, not show bias, but I think it just clearly is. But,
I mean, at the end of the day, everyone has biases. That
true.
is just a fact of life. Anyone who tells you that they are not biased is either stupid or lying.
Yeah, because there's subconscious
The issue
bias.
isn't with having bias. Yeah, exactly. The issue isn't with having biases. It's with being able to recognize them and work against them so as not to have them influence your arguments and your perspective.
Yeah.
That is the important thing. And it's a skill, to be fair. Mm-hmm. It's a skill that takes a lot of time to work on. But I just think it's kind of funny that bro starts off the video with, oh yeah, no, people argue that I'm biased because they don't like my arguments, meh, meh, meh.
Yeah.
And then he just blatantly he just does a list of characters he likes more and says, oh well, these guys scale to their creation feats. Dorothy doesn't because meh.
Yeah, well,
it's just kind of funny.
Here's one of the other absolutely hilarious parts is that when it comes to knowledge claims, he hasn't. I don't think he's actually mentioned knowledge claim, but he's kind of hinted at it, and he has in other videos. Moved
past that argument.
Knowledge claim. So he did a video. I think it was. I can't remember what it was. It might have been Lucius versus Merlin or something like that. And he argued that
that's a mismatch.
Glamour World is, or he argued knowledge claim of Reeve affirming Glamour World's infinite, but doesn't argue knowledge claim for Merlin mentioning the characters of Supreme Deity and Demon Lord, saying that they've created their worlds.
Which Merlin having, because I did read Seven Deadly Sins, she had relatively limited interactions with the Demon King and Supreme Deity. Yeah. As compared to Reeve, who is the one casting the spell. Yeah. It is her spell. It is written in her grimoire. If she doesn't know it innately, she can just look down at the page and see what is written. Even though, again, it's her spell, and we see that, consistently, that mages understand the innate properties of their own spells. Yami understands that Dimension Slash can cut space. When he pulls it out, he wasn't, deliberately trying to construct a spell that cuts space. He just, he was trying to get through the spatial barrier. He, managed to pull off Dimension Slash, and he understood that that was what happened. And not just, they just overpowered the spatial barrier, which, again, is a thing that happens in Black Clover. You can overpower someone's spells if you have enough raw magic power. He understood that that was not what had happened.
Yep.
We see, even, if you want to take more simple spells, like Noelle understanding Sea Dragon's Nest and how it functions, not only, functions as a barrier, but then later on also can be manipulated and actually moved around to function as a mobile barrier. When she has the mana control necessary to do so. She understood that that was a thing she was capable of doing if she got the mana control down. So we know that characters have an innate understanding of their spells, and Reeve is the one casting Glamour. So trying to argue it's a knowledge claim for Reeve to state that Glamour World is infinite when it's her spell is just hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, yeah. But we'll continue.
For Dorothy,
did
it's
you
all
know
based
it's a knowledge claim for me to say my back hurts?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
on so for Dorothy, it's all based on a spell called Glamour World. Take the spell away, and she has nothing to offer. I know y'all gonna say
it's stated by Dorothy that she needs.
Wait, I just realized we didn't. I don't think he might have already passed it, but him stating that. Oh no, he has more to say about her durability and shit. So yeah, we'll keep watching.
To get stronger to trap devils in.
which simply means that she needs to get stronger to put devils in Glamour World rather than Glamour World being destroyed by a devil.
Right, yeah, because he was
not,
trying to argue earlier.
I mean,
he was trying to argue earlier that Glamour World amps Dorothy.
Like she just
That was.
she can just teleport people inside of it, like by looking at them. Like this is not her like struggling to bring a devil into her Glamour World. It is clearly about her being able to keep a devil trapped inside of it.
Even in the example he's gonna bring up of like, she's not able to trap Lucifero. Yes, she does. She gets Lucifero in Glamour World. We can see the surroundings of Glamour World in that panel. Lucifero just breaks out effortlessly.
Yeah.
So, like, the example he's going to bring up in a second actually goes against the point he's trying to make. He's saying, she's not saying that the devils are going to break out of Glamour World when we literally see that happen on panel.
We see Morris break out of it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Morris in it, like, who's stronger than what they anticipated the devils to be. Like, but yeah.
Also,
like how
again, just weird to try and assert that Glamour World amps her. Like he was saying, it's subjective pocket reality manipulation or whatever he called it. So she can just make herself stronger. Where is that stated?
Yeah.
Where is that ever even remotely implied? There is nothing to suggest that it amps her. We just know that it gives her access to the rest of her arsenal. Yeah. It's a setup button, basically. But there's nothing to suggest it's an amp whatsoever. So that's just a really weird... Again, it's him pulling stuff out that isn't there to try and throw more at the wall and see what sticks. It's another instance... Not to keep harping on about it. But it's him just throwing out as many arguments as he can to make it seem statistically unlikely to an audience that isn't properly educated on the subject that he is right. Because at the end of the day, he's not arguing any of these one things. All he is trying to say is Black Clover isn't universal. He doesn't care which of these arguments his audience takes. He has no actual... it's not relevant to him what his audience believes, as long as they don't believe Black Clover is unique. It's a purely reactionary position. And, like... Funnily enough, not to get too political, but, I'm a politics guy. I have qualifications and stuff. It's very similar to what you see in reactionary politicians and reactionary content creators on the political right, and how they construct their quote-unquote arguments against progressive policies. They don't actually attack the argument itself most of the time. They just throw out as many different hypotheticals and as many different what-ifs as possible to make it seem like whatever they're trying to argue against wouldn't work or isn't feasible.
Yeah.
They're not actually directly going after the point. Because they don't care what their audience believes, they just care that they disagree with the people they don't like. Or the take that they don't like, in this case. Because I don't believe Igneel has anything against Broku. He might have some stuff against me, but that's to do with me banning him for breaking Branderheim rules, and he was not very pleased about that. But that's a story for another day.
The Pharaoh slapped her away by just breathing before she could actually put him in Glamour World. She wasn't strong enough or fast enough to trap him in Glamour World to begin with, because she never would have the chance to get him in there. So she needs to get stronger, and stronger doesn't necessarily mean power. It could just
again, doesn't necessarily mean, but that is the primary meaning of it, especially in Black Clover.
Yeah, no, like, could we also just is stronger meaning strength, or is stronger meaning something entirely different? I don't know, chat. What do you all think?
Yeah, like
yeah, it's such a weird argument, especially because the other thing as well is that in Dorothy's in Glamour World when she's talking about needing to get stronger to trap devils in.
Yeah.
So if she was trying to train herself and Glamour World was this like crazy amp, why would she be training herself in Glamour World when she needs to get stronger outside of Glamour World in your argument? It's just completely inconsistent.
Yeah, the whole point is fighting Yami in Glamour World, not like she's already got him in there. Like contextually, that's a weird, very weird interpretation. So, yeah, I totally agree on that one. Like, she's already got him in there. She's fighting him inside of it. And I believe she makes that statement right when he's about to do Dimension Slash.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's definitely a while into that fight. Also, yes, Hatsuya, it is that igneel.
Yeah, and so it's like she has no idea what types of hacks these devils have. All she knows is the power that it's stronger than Zagreed, and it's getting stronger over the course of the time skip. And she is not confident that she can just trap. And because it's stated that she can just send things into her Glamour World and keep it in there. She's kept prisoners in there. When there's like rubble, she just leaves it in there. So it's like worst case scenario. She just, if it's the end of the world's on the line, just trap the Megicula in there, and they're good. Because that's the devil they were training for. But no, she doesn't think she can do that. She thinks Megicula is strong enough to destroy Glamour World, which we then see Yami do it. So
mean that she finds a new way to put people in there, rather than the way she's putting them in normally. Reason number 3. Scaling above Dorothy doesn't actually scale you anywhere.
So
unless
she doesn't just do that. Like she just by looking at you, she can teleport you into Glamour World. Like that's what she did.
I mean, again, in the boulder example he gives as well in a second, he already showed the clip. Like, that's not her destroying those boulders. She just clicks her fingers and teleports them into Glamour World.
Yeah.
It's the same, visual effect that we see when she teleports something into Glamour World. She's just gone, bip,
yep.
You're in there now. So, it's just, the whole thing of, it's her trying to find new ways to trap someone in Glamour World, instead of, popping up on them and creating the thing around them, like he's trying to assert. That's just not a limit that she has at this point in the story.
Yeah.
Especially because, again, the boulder thing happens before she traps Yami.
Yes.
The boulder thing is an earlier part of the fight.
Yeah, and the thing is that if you take out the context, right, Dorothy thinks that boulder is a threat to Charlotte or their magic crystal. Which the magic crystals are designed so that they're not one-shot. Except if you use your hacks or whatever, like Dimension Slash. So it's like, that boulder is either strong enough to destroy the magic crystal, or strong enough to harm Charlotte. So, it's not just a boulder, there's gonna be force applied, right?
Nah, he's gonna use that to argue that boulder level Black Clover is more consistent, bro.
Oh my god.
Giving him ammunition. Don't do it.
Unless she has a way to put people in there, rather than the way she's putting them in normally. Reason number 3. Scaling above Dorothy doesn't actually scale you anywhere, unless she has good durability feats, which she doesn't. And if not, then she's multi-boulder level in durability without Glamour World. And I know she didn't die to Lucifero breathing on her, but that scales nowhere. It's like getting hit by a car at 5 miles per hour, and that one-shots you. But now, since you survived it, you think you can withstand a car going 100 miles per hour, which isn't the case.
So
you heard it here first, folks. Getting hit by Lucifero is like getting hit by a car at 5 miles an hour.
here's where it makes literally zero sense. Like, Lucifero did something that destroyed her magic and sent her flying away. And she survives it. That is a durability feat. If you want to say that she doesn't fully scale Lucifero because he wasn't going all out, like he makes with the miles per hour thing, but still, that gives her scaling above boulder level. And then I'm going to bring up something in the Discord. Some scans.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like, in the Elf arc, Luck and Magna thought that they needed a combo spell to defeat Reeve, Elf Dorothy. If they were both stronger than her outside of Glamour World, they could have just done a singular spell or whatever. But no, they needed to do a combo spell. Which means she scales above Luck and Magna in the Elf Saga. Which is, at the very least, they're multi-continental at that point. So to argue boulder level is just... it's just insane. Like, I genuinely...
Bear in mind, though, I'm pretty sure the combo spell thing happened in Glamour World, and he's arguing that Glamour World amps.
No, it was outside of Glamour World.
Is that outside of Glamour World?
The actual combo spell to beat her, yeah.
Fair play.
So yeah, like, and also we see Dorothy fighting Edward, a Wizard King, in the movie, outside of Glamour World. So it's like, there's so many examples of her. Oh, and also, damn, I don't know if I also have that one. I need to check.
God damn it, did the thing again.
Oh, yeah, then we have, as evidence for her having actual durability, is all of the captains needed Twilight Valhalla to be able to fight inside of Lucifero's gravity. And if we go by the logic that they're all getting a similar amps, that means that she is similar in power to all the other captains, well above boulder level. And then, in her fight with Morris, you can see that she has multiple wounds on her face, but she's not dead. She's actually getting back up. So, and that's 80% double power Morris. So is 80% double power Morris multi-boulder level? No, like, I don't get how you can think Dorothy is this weak when there is just this many times where she's getting damaged.
Yeah, and again, I genuinely don't think he thinks that. I don't think he believes anything that he has said in this video. I'm going to be entirely honest with you.
Yeah.
Outside of, like, the times where he just said, oh, that means they're not universal, because he clearly doesn't want them to be uni. But when it comes to the actual arguments, I genuinely don't believe he actually believes any of them.
Yeah.
Because the logic around them is so blatantly either fallacious, inconsistent, or disingenuous, in many cases some combination of the three, that anyone who actually, like, takes a second to think about these instances that has some knowledge on the series, which he clearly does, considering a lot of the stuff he's bringing up is lesser known instances in the series.
Yeah.
So he clearly has some knowledge on the series. It just genuinely comes across as him looking for the most, like, disingenuous interpretations that he can make. Like, it feels like bro's turned it into a sport or something, which I doubt, but, like, that's how it comes across. But, like,
somebody brought up, and I want to bring this up, this will also highlight the bias, is that he asked, is this the same guy that said Gojo could disturb both space and time because his infinity, or with his infinity, because one character said it? And this is true. And this is the funniest point, is that for the longest time he's argued that, well, the feat from Yami is in the anime, not in the manga, so it doesn't count. But in the same note, he takes the space and time statement from the JJK Volume 0 movie to mean that Gojo manipulates space-time above space or whatever. And his evidence for that was Gege told people to go watch the movie, whereas you have Tabata stating that the statement from Tabata, the anime director, that he worked with Tabata and Tabata's editor to make these episodes. And Dorothy, or Reeve, her statement is about it's her own statement about her own ability for what it does, whereas Gojo's ability was a character who had heard of Gojo's ability saying what it does. And if for whatever reason that has more weight than in Black Clover when a character talks about their own ability. So, like, it's one of those things where he cherry picks knowledge claims to support his argument, and then uses them on the other argument. And this is like another case of it. Like it's nuts.
Yeah, JJK Zero is a manga chapter though. No, okay, in the manga volume for Volume Zero, because it's not a chapter, it's 4 chapters. Miguel says, so this is Satoru Gojo, the guy who manipulates space at the atomic level.
Yep.
In the movie specifically, the JJK movie Zero, that is where Miguel says space-time.
Yeah.
It's only in the movie, not in the manga.
Which,
whereas
I'm not even necessarily against it.
Stuff,
but by his own logic, he cannot use that, which, yeah, but...
Yeah, no, and like for the record, I also think that using that movie statement is fine. I don't generally use it myself, but like there's ways you can make the space-time thing consistent for Gojo. But like that's not the point here. The point is that there are more levels of abstraction in the Gojo case because it's Miguel stating something which he heard from Geto, which Geto presumably heard from Gojo, but we don't even know that for certain. For all we know, Geto, like, heard some shit from, like, someone else in the Gojo clan when he was, like, going to pick Gojo up to go hang out or whatever. Like, we just don't know where Geto got that information from specifically. Whereas in the Black Clover case, it is manga canon, which is obviously the primary source of canon. Not to say there aren't other things that can be canon. But yeah, it's manga canon, and it's, like, directly stated by the character who does the feat themselves. About their own ability. It's not great, man. Like, the worst part is this is, like, a consistent thing with Bro as well, because we've got, like, the hyperspace statement that Bro was using for the inventory, because I don't know if he still uses that argument, but he was using it when he was in Brando, briefly. When we were running Gojo versus Yami. He was using the hyperspace stuff for the inventory curse, which is from the back of a toy. And then you contrast that with... Yes, it is literally from the back of a toy.
Yikes.
It's bad, dude. And then you contrast that with his issues with Zenon, stating that the spaces he creates are hyperspaces because, oh, well, the English translates it as subspace, even though, like, we know that there are, like, issues with the English translation. Zeton stated to be 100 times multiplier in the English, in the Viz translation, whereas in the Japanese it's many tens of times. So, like, we know that there are, like, those inconsistencies are a thing, and if you actually look at the kanji in the context of the situation, we know it's a hyperspace. Especially because, like, we just blatantly see that the spaces that Zenon creates are separate spaces. They're not a subsection of a pre-existing space. It is an entirely separate, disconnected space. So it can't be a subspace.
Yeah.
Because, like, a subspace, like, definitionally it can't. But yeah, so it's just, Bro is consistently cherry-picking arguments to upscale versus that he wants to upscale and downscale versus he wants to downscale. And, like, honestly, I don't even necessarily believe it's like a, oh, he doesn't like Black Clover thing. Because, like, dude's clearly got the base knowledge of the series. He's read the series, as I mentioned before. Like, it's very clear with, the stuff that he's using for his arguments. Just, some people just don't like certain things being strong for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing with people. I don't get it myself. It's just it is just a thing that happens sometimes, though. I'm sure you've all encountered instances of this as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw Hatsuya in chat. Not the translation error stuff again, no! For context, Hatsuya is in the Discord. He's been translating stuff for us for a while now, and he gets tired of it, understandably.
Example
you think Yuji can be post-beginning Magic Knight Asta? No. Like, what, like, just after he joined the Black Bulls? Sorry, I'm getting slightly distracted.
No,
it's just a curious one.
This Valhalla amped Dorothy seriously. So Dorothy doesn't really have any durability feats outside of Glamour World, and even inside of Glamour World, I don't think she really has any durability feats that I am aware of. If y'all can reference some, then sure, you got it. But it still won't scale to high universal level. Also, just to let y'all know that being able to neg spells is just a power nullification feat. We also see Fire, Shadow, wind, darkness, and time magic work on Lucifero. So these statements of a character being above all spells is just some hot shit over exaggerated claims with no real confirmation to those claims.
What? Bro, like,
yeah,
this is what I'm talking about with, like, picking and choosing knowledge claims. Like, what? I don't see how that's an argument at all. Like, you have to substantiate why this is hot shit or whatever, or why this is hyperbolic. But I mean, I'll play it a little bit more if he does, but I don't know.
I don't believe
so
he
no,
does.
These doesn't scale them anywhere and is just to hype up the character.
Oh,
I know.
So no argument whatsoever. Okay, so
Yeah, like it's hyperbole, which is a favorite of the down player. It's hyperbole. This isn't like just a Black Clover specific thing either. You'll see it in like basically any power scaling circle for any verse. You'll see people who say like one or two statements or whatever are like hyperbolic, without actually substantiating why they would be hyperbolic and like what supports them being hyperbolic.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even bring up. And here's the thing: like, if you want to make the argument of magic power, if there's massive differences that there is power nullification there, that's magic power, not spells.
Yeah,
it's raw magic power, not spells, so they wouldn't even apply in this context. So like, they'll bring up the whole idea of power nullification makes zero sense, and then to say that the claim that it's scaling above all spells, to argue that's hyperbolic or just hot shit. Again, no argument provided for why that's the case.
Not to mention, if you do want to use the magic power null thing, like, because we know that magic power can negate spells, and spells obviously scale above the raw magic power within them. So at that point, if you're able to negate a spell with your raw magic power, like, already to negate magic power with magic power, you need to scale significantly above the person being negated. Spells upscale, albeit to a finite degree, from the person casting them. So to negate someone's spell with raw magic power, you need to upscale from them to an even greater extent.
Yeah.
So if you're arguing, if you're using the power null argument against Glamour World, then that would just make people scale even further above it.
Yeah, this is a really weird point.
There's a reason that when I was going through this video, there's a reason when I was going through this video, it got to a point where I had to put it on 2x speed just to get through it. I'm gonna keep it real with you.
Oh my gosh.
This is kinda getting redundant, because I pretty much refuted the basis for these arguments, but hey, I did say I'm going to be doing a in-depth video on why they ain't high universal, and right now I'm literally living in the Black Clover character's walls, and I'm about to go even deeper.
What was that?
I was just saying, in depth, he says, as if he said anything at all in this video.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
Bro, he's been speaking for like 15-20 minutes and he's not said anything!
A lot of characters have statements to have infinite power, which supports high universal Black Clover. And the reason why I disagree with this argument is because it's only stated one time that Dante had unlimited power, and the rest are just statements that say infinite mana, infinite amount of magic, and so on, which I don't think they are saying infinite in the literal sense, because the ones that...
I'll say it again. Emily Sin's character, it's the Lady of the Lake, stated to have infinite power, or infinite magic, and he takes that at face value, like, no debate. But when it comes to Black Clover, there's contentions.
That are supposed to have infinite
in
amount
Black
of
Clover,
magic.
it's actually more substantiated. Like, the amount of raw mana you have is, like, directly corollary to your output. Like, again, we see when people get a buff of like, 10 mana, it increases all of their stats. And magic power is just mana that's been refined for use in spells. So that applies as well.
Yeah.
Can be used to play into the beginning of series high uni arguments if you want to get really toxic, but... You know, maybe
Some can
after
be
we've done this
run
video, if
out
we've got
of
time, I might
magic.
go into that if people want. Who knows?
Which shouldn't be possible if it was truly infinite. So you can argue, in this case, it just means vast or a big amount.
I mean, you can still run out of power if you have infinite power. Like I understand it sounds like it doesn't make sense, but this like the same logic applies. How do you destroy an infinite universe if it's infinite? Because it's infinite. But no, if you can destroy an infinite, if you can reduce an infinite space to nothing or to zero, you can reduce an infinite amount of mana to zero. Like there's no difference.
And
like you're reversing a space to zero and then a mana to zero, and also like the matter or energy of the universe too. Like it's not that crazy.
Yeah. Also, like, just, like, to put it in a bit more of a mathsy term for people who, like, find that a bit easy to understand, put it this way. If you have an infinite amount of magic power, and, like, the only way for you to run out is if you are putting infinite amounts of energy into your attacks. So, for example, if you have an infinite amount of magic... Let's say we have Yami, he has an infinite amount of magic power in this hypothetical. I don't think he actually has any of those statements, but, like, you could low-key support it anyway. So let's say Yami has an infinite amount of magic power, and he puts 10% of that magic power into one attack. Okay? A bit much for one strike, but he gets the point across. The amount that he put into that attack is still an infinite amount in terms of, like, the raw volume of it. It's just a smaller infinity than the whole. But because he's decreased that infinite amount of raw mana by a finite percentage, by taking off a smaller infinity from it, he can still run out because you just do another 10% of the original whole, then another 10%, and so on and so forth. Eventually you'll hit zero. But what that also means is that people running out of mana when they have infinite mana just substantiates further that they're using infinite amounts of mana in their attacks.
Yeah.
It's further evidence for high uni. He keeps doing this. Every argument he makes that he actually, like, puts something behind ends up supporting the point he's trying to debunk. It's kind of funny.
Which I think I might have something to add on, depending on... I can't remember exactly how he words the next, but let's see.
Of magic, which shouldn't be possible if it was truly infinite. So you can argue, in this case, it just means vast or a big amount, since the statements are talking about their amount of magic and not their magic power or how strong they are. And as for argument 4, it goes along the lines of this. Lucifero fused with the Tree of Cliffoff.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, like, if you want to make the argument, which I'm not sure if he exactly was saying it, where if he's saying that they don't have, like, they have infinite mana but not infinite power, well, it still wouldn't matter, because if you want to say, like, for example, Dante has infinite mana but not infinite power, Asta still shut off all of his mana, which means he can nullify an infinite amount.
Not only shut off, erased.
That's true.
Like,
yeah.
Dante doesn't have any, like, all of his, like the extra body magic around him and stuff completely shuts off. He faints as well, which we know is a thing from, like after chapter, like, questionnaires, that, like, when you run out of magic, you either, like, faint or, like, get very fatigued. So that's another, like, showing that, like, Dante has 0 mana left. So Asta negates an infinite amount of mana with one strike, and then, like, gets exponentially stronger from there.
Yeah.
That's...
But now we're into the Cliffoff arguments.
Oh boy, the Cliffoff arguments. I'm gonna have to be quiet for this one.
Oh my god.
Because the Tree of Life is a tree that represents the structure of the universe. And the Tree of Cliffoff is the same thing, but for Hull, making the Tree of Cliffoff universal, and Asta is stated that he could destroy it with anti-magic, making Asta, who has anti-magic, universal. So the reason why I disagree with this argument is because you have to presuppose that they are being literal when talking about the Tree of Cliffoff, because nothing in the actual manga implies that the Cliffoff tree is a universe-sized tree. They always refer to it as a spell to connect the two worlds.
Oh, wait. He says nothing in the manga does. That's weird. Let me show the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on the Cliffoff. For,
when we know that that universe has, or hell is a universe with 7 layers, and then we just see the Tree of Qliphoth like in the background, like that hell is, or the Tree of Qliphoth is as big as hell, and like another statement,
and not even just as big as hell. It's as big as hell, and like it contains both hell and the living world. This is the other thing, because he brings this up later on, the whole thing of, oh, well, if he fused with the Qliphoth, why is hell still there? Because the Qliphoth isn't hell. It's a structure that contains hell and connects it to the human world. They're not the same thing. It's just that the Qliphoth is large enough to contain hell.
Yeah.
Which makes it at least a uni plus size structure.
Well, like, he hasn't mentioned it yet, but I'll just say it. But like, yeah, just as you said, just because you destroy Qliphoth doesn't mean you destroy hell, because they're not the same thing. But Lucius has the Qliphoth right now, so I mean, we could say that Asta defeated Lucifero, who absorbed the Tree of Qliphoth or fused with it. That doesn't mean that he just outright completely destroyed the Tree of Qliphoth. It could just be that it was still like inside of Lucifero's heart, and when Lucius ate it, now he has it too. So,
well, yeah, because Lucifero fused with the Qliphoth, he used it to construct and consolidate his body, which would include his heart, and we know that Lucius gained Lucifero's physical attributes when he ate his heart, because he comments on getting Lucifero's physical strength as well as his mana. So that would include the Qliphoth as well, naturally.
Yeah, and like, like the Lucifero, like the devils are like kind of, they are their hearts. That is like their core or their soul in a sense, even though not really. But so like the heart was never destroyed. The heart was never destroyed. So like you could just because Lucifer is defeated does not mean that the Tree of Qliphoth is destroyed. And even if the Tree of Qliphoth was destroyed, it's not the end of the world, or not the end of hell or whatever. So,
Vasco Mans, I will just point out that is not what Broku said. But if you really want to, you can actually argue that, and it is very consistent. I'm not going to get too much into it, because I promised I wouldn't. But, yeah.
I mean, it's at the very least, it's 7 dimensions in size. Like, that's just blatantly stated in the series, but
yeah.
And not some tree that exists in the underworld. Not only that, but they call the spell a ritual, and anti-magic is their only way to deal with the ritual. If it was actually a universal size tree, then anyone who scales to Asta or above would be able to destroy the Qliphoth tree, but no, that isn't the case.
See, this is why it's really important to understand what you're talking about, because it's not just that Asta is anti-magic that he can destroy the Qliphoth. If you actually read what's going on, Noct says he's going to make Asta their ultimate warrior. Noct sees Devil Union Asta and says he will be the strongest. And then he says, we could use the anti-magic to destroy the Qliphoth itself. But if we destroyed it with brute force, and Yami and Vengeance died, you'd never forgive me, would you? This is literally talking about Asta being strong enough to destroy the Qliphoth. Not that he can only destroy it because of anti-magic. That's very clear there. It's like, he shows half the statement, and not the other half that supports that it's by Asta's power, not because of anti-magic. It's very clear. Like,
I should also point out that the ritual he's talking about is not the tree itself. The ritual is there to allow the tree to to use the tree to open the gates of the underworld to allow devils into the human world. Right. The ritual is not the tree. Those are two completely separate things.
Yep.
But yeah, and also if you really want to get into it, why they specifically wanted to go with Asta, you can also argue that Qliphoth being so closely connected to hell and suffused with its mana would be comprised of negative mana and would require something arcane to destroy it, so it wouldn't just be a power thing, but also you need to be strong enough and arcane, which obviously anti-magic is arcane. But yeah.
Yeah.
There's that as well.
Yeah.
Only anti-magic had the potential to destroy it, which further supports that the Tree of Qliphoth is just a title for the ritual or spell. Kinda like how in Dragon Ball, Vegeta has an attack that's called the Big Bang attack. That doesn't mean the attack is actually a Big Bang. Same case here. There is nothing.
No,
This
it's
is
not.
the stupidest thing. Like, they are literally
trying
summoning
to
the Tree of Cliffoff. Like, this is
no, like,
different from the
he's
Big
trying
Bang.
to argue. He's trying to argue that the Tree of Clifford is the one from IRL like it's the same name as the one from IRL Jewish Demonology, so that's what people are trying to argue. And while we do see that, like, the diagram that Dante shows the audience when he's first explaining it to Yami is, like, literally just a copy-pasted version of a diagram from real Jewish demonology, when we actually get visualizations of what the Qliphoth is and how it functions in Black Clover, it's clearly a different thing. It's a different tree that we also then see physically manifesting in the living world.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to argue, oh, well, it's like a name fallacy.
Yeah.
Just completely sidesteps the entire actual argument for the Qliphoth scaling.
And we can tell how conflated he is with the name fallacy when he brings up William in a second here, which we'll see.
Thing in the manga to say that the Tree of Life or the Tree of Qliphoth are actually universal in size. So in actuality, anyone who says they are making a baseless claim, because you can't prove that they are using the same philosophy and not the same name. Also, a representation of the universe doesn't necessarily mean that it is universal in size, because I can say Meregliona is a representation of...
This was the weirdest point I've ever seen, to be honest. Like, I'm gonna rewind it and then just let him go, because this had no correlation to showing the diagrams of the Qliphoth at all.
Universal in size.
Oh, WDLZ, by the way.
Meregliona...
Oh shit, thank you, Diesel, appreciate that.
That's Diesel. I may be stupid.
Yeah, I just read it as a Diesel. Damn, it's not letting me...
I didn't clock that.
Yeah.
Is a representation of beauty because she's hot, like home, but that doesn't mean she is beauty itself. In my handbook she is, but in reality it doesn't mean that. Same case for any physical constructs that represents a concept. And since 50% Lucifero died, if he had any connection with the dimension of hell...
we already gonna address that point, but like, dude, how is this anything? Like, you think Princia is pretty? So like, she is pretty itself. Like, that has nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Here's the Tree of Qliphoth. Here's a diagram of it. Here's multiple diagrams of it. How is this even close to being comparable?
Yeah. Again, he's trying to make it seem like the Qliphoth argument is just, oh, well, it's the same name as the thing from Jewish demonology, therefore that means it's the same thing. That means it scales to the Jewish demonology one. That's what he's trying to present the argument as, which is not what the argument is at all. Especially because, like, if we were going with that, we also have the Tree of Sephiroth in Black Clover, which, if we were comparing that to, like, actual, like, Jewish mysticism and shit, like the one from Jewish mysticism, I'm pretty sure that would be, like, really high into Outer, or, like, high Outer.
I'm not even sure.
Yeah, this is just me hearing from people who, like, do actually, like, study this stuff and scale it, but...
Yo, Logan, I'm glad you like Cradle, bro.
Yeah.
Keep reading.
Hey!
Keeps getting better. Yeah, and here's the thing, is that you can use the idea of, like, oh, this is from Jewish mythology, blah, 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 this is what it is. Because, like, it's almost like, okay, well, if you're reading a story and this person shows a weapon that looks exactly like an AK-47, and you say this is an AK-47, you can make the very logical step of, oh, this is going to work very similar to an AK-47. Whereas Dante says this is the Tree of Qliphoth, pulls a real-life diagram from real-world mythology and religion, and says this is the Tree of Qliphoth. You could go, but that's not even what we're saying, because we're just going off of the Black Clover diagrams that were created, the ones that Tabata created himself, show the Tree of Qliphoth being as big as hell. That's what is going off of.
Which, I mean, like, if you wanted to, you can, like, tie... Like, if you use the higher-end arguments for the Qliphoth with, like, Tabata's diagrams and stuff, and how it's represented, you can then tie it back into the one that we see from Dante. considering like that's another one that kind of shows like each one being a separate universe. But again, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Sephiroth from the Fit video game Final Fantasy VII. Spelling mistake. Get done.
Oh my gosh.
Due to confusing.
Oh, yeah, but we already addressed this other point, is that Lucifero was never destroyed. His heart was fine. And as we can see, when Lucius eats Lucifero's heart, he gets his key, he gets his magic power, he gets his abilities. So it's like, that is his, basically
his physical
soul.
strength.
So like, you could argue that for at least devils, their soul is tied to their hearts, at least when they're manifested. So Lucifero was never destroyed. So the Cliff-Off was never...
We know at the very least that the soul of a devil is contained within the heart, if nothing else, because he did get the hearts of the devils who, or he did get the souls of the devils whose hearts he ate, because that's how he creates paladins. Yeah. He purifies the magic power of the devil and implants it into that and the attribute into the paladin that he's trying to make via his soul magic.
Yeah.
It is him literally putting the purified soul of that devil into that person.
Yep.
So, like, even if you... Because I don't necessarily think the heart is the soul for a devil, but, like, there's clearly a correlation there.
Yeah.
And again, as was mentioned before, like, he gets Lucifero's physical strength, he gets his key, he gets his mana, he gets his spells, he gets his attribute. We even see Lucius in the Judgment Day arc using gravity magic.
Yeah.
And then he also has the Clayfon. Yep. Which he's seemingly purified.
Yep. Yeah, you can argue that the Cliff-Off was never actually destroyed, just defeated.
But Lucifero would still scale to it because he was able to manipulate it to that extent.
Yeah.
So it creates there's still that narrative consistency.
Yeah. Wolf's the instinct. All you really have to do is ask somebody who's watched the series if they think characters are universal. They'd probably call you crazy. The scaling is consistent, but it's not directed enough. Yeah, but I don't think that's a great argument to gauge if something is true. Because if you think about it, most people who have read the series, they've probably only done it once or twice. They probably didn't think about power scaling when they read it. Like, honestly, I think that most people think that Black Clover is country level at best. Even though the movie blatantly states that Conrad was going to destroy the continent. And he's not even close to being the strongest anymore. So, like, if you even just go on the low ends, there are literal statements that Conrad is going to destroy the continent. He's not even close to being the strongest, and people still think Asta or Black Clover is only country level. So, it's like, I get it, but I still think that's a good way to judge something.
Yeah, consensus doesn't mean that a statement is correct. Like, for example, there's a pretty broad consensus in the US that gun control laws would not reduce gun crime. Even though the US, the only place in the world that has such loose gun laws, is also the only place in the world with such rampant gun crime. So, like, just because that consensus is there doesn't mean the position that is being held with that consensus is correct. You have to look at, like, the surrounding evidence to actually figure out what is true. Which, like, also, again, like, with the whole thing of, like, most people... Like, as has been mentioned, most people don't think about power scaling. We're kind of the weird ones here, and that's fine, because most people are just trying to enjoy stuff. We're trying to enjoy stuff, too. We just have a different way of going about it, you know?
Yeah, I remember you, Diesel.
But yeah.
I'll have to check out your channel, bro. Thanks for another €2, I believe. Appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, W-Mans.
He was actually, like, if I remember this person correctly, which I'm pretty sure I do, they actually are, like, a Korra scaler, which is actually, like, he was, like, a rare... good scaler on
very
Korra.
Rare,
yeah. So
okay,
yeah.
I've been wanting to get into Avatar and Korra and that, so I'll have to.
Oh, I meant like Korra, like the question asking website.
Oh, Korra. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But yeah, I'll have to check out your channel, Diesel.
Yank moment. Yeah, I'll have a look later.
With the Cliff-Off tree, then shouldn't Hell also be destroyed? And if not, then the representation of a universe...
No, because, like, I mean, as we already said, it wasn't destroyed, and you can, like... Cliff-Off is not Hell, it's just as big as Hell.
It's a thing that contains Hell. It's like, if you vaporize a shipping container, but specifically the metal of the shipping container, the stuff within the shipping container is not getting vaporized.
Yeah.
You know, like, unless you're doing a big thing that, like, just does everything in the direction of the shipping container, like, if you're focusing specifically on the, like the metal shell, it's only the metal shell that's going to get gone. Everything inside will be relatively untouched. It might be a little shaken up, potentially, but it's not going to, like, destroy that. So, again, they're separate things.
Yeah.
Verse is meaningless. Also, just to note that William has World Tree magic, which is also known as the Tree of Life. So, does that mean that Season 1 William is universal because he has the Tree of Life magic, aka World Tree magic? If you're the one that says yes, y'all are smooth brains and stupid. But jokes aside.
Here's the thing, like, nobody's making the claim. There is no, like, it's not... We're not given a diagram of William's magic, and it says that his world tree covers the living world, and nobody is making the argument. And, like, the reason why that argument would suck is, in order to summon the Tree of Cliffoff, you need to take William, combine his power with Yami's power, and then spend 6 months to a year absorbing the magic power of Innocence and Grand Magic regions to amp that power, to then also have the Dark Triad amp that power to form a ritual to do that. So nobody is claiming that it has to scale to, like, the Tree of Cliffoff or whatever.
I mean, there's also a much more fundamental issue with that line of logic, and that is that World Tree does not, in fact, innately correlate to Tree of Life. In fact, we already have a Tree of Life in Black Clover. It's the Sephiroth, which you'll remember from the Apostles of Sephiroth in the Elf arc. They were connected to the Sephiroth. It's a separate thing!
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing! And, like, even if you just want to take the inspirations and look at it from that perspective, obviously the Sephiroth and the Qliphoth are from Jewish demonology and mysticism. William's World Tree magic is inspired by Norse mythology, as much of Black Clover is. I mean, I believe there's a couple of spells that, like, refer to the World Tree as Yggdrasil. There's also the blade that he makes for Yami, I forget what it's called, but at the end of the Spade arc. Mistletoe Blade, yes. Which is a direct reference to Norse mythology. So, like, again, that's... Even if you just want to go with, like, names and shit, that's just not what that is.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah, it's just a weird point again.
Aside, kind of. This wouldn't make William or the Tree of Life and the Cliffoff Tree actually universal size constructs, nor was that the intent of the author. With the logic...
What'd you say?
I was just saying, nah, let me know, they ain't ready for it.
Oh my god.
Of people that try use this, I have a question for you. Is Asta a bright star or a beautiful goddess just because his name means those things? If not, then a spell named the Tree of Life and or the Tree of Cliffoff doesn't mean that's what they are in terms of Norse mythology.
What is going on? We're like, he's clearly taken the argument of what the argument is, and like we see
he's deliberately misrepresenting it.
We literally see multiple diagrams of the Tree of Cliffoff being the size of hell.
Yeah,
like, I don't get how this is so misconstrued.
This kind of ties into the whole thing I've been mentioning this whole stream. Bro does not believe what he's saying. He's just throwing stuff out there to an audience that's not as familiar with the source material, so as to try and convince them of one thing using a billion different arguments that he doesn't believe any of.
Yeah.
He's just shotgunning stuff at people to try and convince them of something that isn't true.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Or whatever mythology it comes from. And obviously, the author can take inspiration from these mythologies and make his own thing. Anyway, that's all I have to say on this topic, besides one last thing, which is not everything in Glamour World is real. Just because Sally said that what she creates is the real thing, doesn't mean it is true, because it's her first time seeing Glamour World, and she only tested her theory on one thing, which was water. So you can't say everything is real, especially when we see Elf Dorothy fight fake Dorothy made by the Elf version, because we literally see that Dorothy is made by clouds or smoke.
Dude, so, and anybody who's watched this or read this, it is very clear that that little smoke mirage is not Dorothy. The whole point was to make Reeve think of Dorothy so she would create Dorothy. This is not what Dorothy, like, oh my god, I could not believe this.
He's trying to Hercule at the Cell games, bro. Come on, Jimmy, it's all smoke and mirrors, it's just tricks.
Like, Jesus Christ.
It's so bad.
This is where it's like, okay, how do you get to this wrong? Like, it even says like,
again, like
the possibility that it might be the real thing that crossed her mind, and then all of a sudden Dorothy comes in. Oh man.
Yeah, and like we even see that like the real Dorothy that's created is separate from the like cotton smoke Dorothy.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like
I'm pretty sure in the anime, like we see the smoke disappear, and then she thinks of Dorothy. I can't remember for sure, but
yeah, I vaguely remember there being like a scene of like Dorothy and like the smoke Dorothy is in the same shot.
Yeah.
I don't know if
They
that's
might have
anime
been,
or
I can't
manga. It's been a
remember.
while.
But
Yeah, but it's just again,
so bad.
he's trying to Hercule it, bro.
oh my god. And then there's another point where he thinks that the Yamis aren't real, which I'll let him say it, then I'll debunk it.
Of course,
Yeah,
we
because
also
they
see
like
fake
pop like
Yamis,
balloons.
pop
Yeah.
like a balloon
Yeah,
of
like-
smoke or steam. We also see fake Yamis like pop like a balloon when the real Yami uses his dimension.
Alright, so here's the thing. This is where I put in the Discord. So, he just said that those Yamis pop like balloons, but if you actually look at the anime, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Yamis. And then, the effect goes down. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Yamis. And then, all of the Yamis are still there. The Yamis did not pop. It was the other things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Yamis. And actually, I think that's another one right there. I think the scene just expanded so you could get more, because there was like 13 Yamis. So none of the Yamis popped.
Yeah.
None of them popped. It was literally everything else besides the Yamis. So like,
Yeah.
this was just terrible.
Which also, like, can we just... Wow, so you're telling me that this massive realm that is creating these, like, constructs, like, and is sustaining them, when it's destroyed, it can't sustain the things that it was creating when it's fucking dying?
Yeah.
Wow! Mind blown! Truly, this is one of the greatest revelations of our time!
Yeah.
Like, what, bro? Be for real, man.
It's crazy.
Well, now that I just see in chat, well, now that's quite the oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
/ equinox, which means not everything she creates are real. Also, just to add on, I'm trying to make a Discord server for...
Okay, that's pretty much the video from what I remember.
That's getting into his Discord. Yeah, at the end of that, that's just him talking like, oh, I'm looking for 16-year-olds to moderate my Discord type shit.
But yeah, guys.
Is what he
so,
was saying, but yeah.
As you can see, that was not a very good attempt at debunking Universal Black Clover.
It's a good attempt at giving me a stroke.